at d3sports.com. You can also join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville, where we're live simulcasting the show. We're also live simulcasting the show on YouTube, youtube.com/Hoopsville. Lots of ways to get a hold of us. Hope you'll take advantage fully of them as we are rolling along on this evening. Got lots to jam in. Let's talk about that. We got lots of business to talk about as well. I didn't even write all down my notes because, I just can't seem to do that sometimes. So here we go. First and foremost, we just got word of the top 16 according to the criteria in the eyes of the National Committee. We will talk to both committee chairs here momentarily. In fact, we will start up our Zoom here momentarily so that they can get in board and ready to go with us. They will join us and talk. We will talk to both Mike Schauer and to Megan Wilson, who are looking a lot better than I am. Just for the record, I'm a little disappointed in that. We will have to talk to them about how that all happened, because that's not fair. But we will talk to them in a moment. We have a little bit of business I want to take care of first and foremost. Again, Mike Schauer, Megan Wilson, who are eavesdropping, will be joining us momentarily. All right, so a couple bit of business. Last show, if you were paying attention, and I hope you were, we hinted that there was some news conference-wise to come out. Yep, second news conference in a week, or roughly a week. Of course, we talked about the Landmark last week, broke that news with them adding football, and all that goes with it. Well, the USA South has finally, and I do say finally, split up. I'm trying to remember all the particulars because I'm doing this off the top of my head because nothing goes according to plan, but Barron and Maryville, LaGrange, Huntington, Berea, Agnes Scott, Wesleyan, and I'm forgetting one, will be joining, or two I'm forgetting, will be joining a new conference that we believe will be called the Collegiate, it's like CCIW, but it's CCS, okay? And the S, not surprisingly, stands for South. That's what we believe. We don't know that for sure. That conference has finally been made. I am under the impression that has been in the works for years and finally got off the ground this year. I was ready to kind of break that news back in 2019, 2020. And apparently I got told things got put on hold. I don't know what the reason was. I got told it was off, but ultimately the pandemic is what caused it to go off, is what I've been told. That doesn't change any automatic bids. It doesn't change any qualifiers like the Landmark decision does in football. For example, football, all those schools who are in the USA South will stay in the USA South as affiliate members. They will stay that way in men's lacrosse as well. And certainly probably some other sports as time goes on. There are a number of schools down south that need homes. Bob Jones still hasn't found a home. Warren Wilson, Asbury, now Lynn, who's making the transition to Division III. We think Mississippi University of Women, probably not long for the SLIAC after just joining. And there was one other off the top of my head, I can't remember who it is. Brevard said they were joining the USA South. In reality, they were joining this conference. They all may find homes in either the USA South or otherwise. Maybe the USA South is waiting to make an announcement to welcome a couple of those in. I don't know the particulars. But anyway, that's a big news of the day. Obviously, the latest regional rankings are out. That's why we talk top 16. We will talk to the committee chairs about that in a moment. Men's came out on Tuesday. Women's came out on Wednesday. We'll look forward to the final public ones, well, technically before the tournament next week, and then the final public ones will come out after the tournament brackets are out. And I think that's the business that we have at hand, right? There was certainly a lot going on. It is that time of year. It is a blur right now. I swear it was the beginning of January just yesterday. And we're looking 10 days away from the conference, from the brackets being released. Speaking of which, Will Haskett. I always say Will's last name wrong. Good to see him back on the broadcast for D3. Good to see him. I know a little nugget. A D3 guy will be on the bracket show. And I'm not talking about myself, though I have been penciled in for that too. I apologize to D3 Nation. But we will be having two D3 guys releasing the brackets coming up in 10 days' time. And now I've wasted enough time chit-chatting and getting some business taken care of. It's about darn time we maybe turn it over to the stars of the show, as it were. Joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline, it is the aforementioned heads of the national committees looking way better than me. I did not get this memo, you two. It is Mike Schauer from Wheaton, and it is Megan Wilson from Luther. Yeah, I saw you guys pop up on the show, and I went, yeah, didn't think that one through.
You always look great, Dave.
No, thank you. In my nice
Yep.
T-shirt. Yeah.
It's a good color on you.
Well, thank you. I do like the blue. Wait a minute. Luther's blue. Hold on a second.
Wheaton's blue. We're navy.
No, I know. I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm being kind to people. First off, slammed the show together. Got to watch it. Saw the top 16. I've got them scribbled down on notes here. I think some people are going to, let's get the cat out of the bag first. Some people are going to be surprised here. I saw one tweet response already to Hope sitting down in the 12 hole on the women's side. On the men's side, I'm sure some people are sitting there scratching their heads about a couple of them. We have to remind each other, people, and I'm not just trying to be the NCAA business here. This is based on criteria. This isn't based on top 25 stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
No question. And Dave, it was hard. I think Megan will attest to the fact that the order was difficult. The conversations were close, and the order was difficult.
I can imagine. And the last one in, Will alluded to it on the men's side. Sounds like Swarthmore was a last-second decision in. Maybe Masai on the same on the women's. I'm not sure, but I've talked to a couple committee members by happenstance in the last few days, either on phone calls or bumping into them in person, whatever the case may be. None of them talk about this process being easy, and we never expected it to be, but you're working ahead of time. And Megan, you said that on that NCAA show. You're doing more work now than maybe you have been in the past, right?
Yeah, for sure. I've said before when we've talked, we have a lot of new committee members. We had a lot of turnover. So I can't imagine that Monday is already just a whirlwind, right? You want to talk about January, those 24 hours go by in the blink of an eye. So for us to go through this exercise, for many of them for the very first time and kind of get them acclimated to it, it's also a good discussion to, compare teams from different regions. Yes, we go through our work each week, but we're just talking about regions separately and together. And so to kind of do that cross comparison from teams from other regions, it was a great exercise. It was exciting. It was fun. It has me excited, but it was still really, really difficult.
Mike, I assume it's same from your perspective. Is there anything different on the men's side that you guys were dealing with?
Not really, Dave. I think we've actually done this in the past. We've kind of done a top 16 internally to kind of start the process of having discussions between two really good resumes, which is what happens when you're picking the at-large bids. You're going to be dealing with predominantly really good resumes, and it starts to build a little rhythm as to what is the committee looking for, sort of what is what's the tipping point? What are you going to value as you're looking at two really good resumes? And so we've done this in the past. Our committee had a blast with it. It was one of the best calls I've ever been a part of when we did this. There was a lot of give and take, a lot of discussion. It was really positive, and we're kind of hopeful that's going to build some momentum towards when we, quote unquote, do it for real.
Yeah, well, for real. You just did it for real, just so you know. Everyone's going to take this as real standings because they're going to be shocked when you guys make decisions down the road, and I'm being a little bit facetious on this. Let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about the criteria. I think it's something that some of us, when we're in it, involved in it as much as we are, especially myself, we glaze over a lot of this. And it's because we talk about it in nauseum. But for a lot of people out there, it's a little bit new. I'm going to split it up and I'm going to have fun with this. Mike, I want primary out of you. Megan, I want secondary out of you. That's how we're splitting this up. Mike, give me a sense of what the primary criteria is that you're looking at that you first and foremost are ranking teams based on.
Yeah, so I'm going to just preface by saying this is all Division III competition, so I won't repeat that every time. It's winning percentage, and then strength of schedule. Those are sort of, they bookend, if you will. They appear to the far left and the far right of our criteria when we look at it. So winning percentage, strength of schedule, head-to-head, which is self-explanatory. If you played the team you're being compared to, if there's a head-to-head results versus common opponents. So that would be the record of the team if you've played, whether it's a conference team, non-conference team, if you have common opponents. And then regionally ranked results, basically your record against teams that are ranked either in your region or one of the other 9 regions. What is your record against those teams? Those are the primary criteria.
Say, get the idea, and obviously you try and make decisions based on the primary. If we have to go to secondary criteria, Megan, where's where's it get wonky there?
So the secondary criteria would be non-Division III win-loss percentage, results versus common non-Division III opponents, and then non-conference strength of schedule.
So first off, I'm going to get out of the way. The results against non-Division III, or the overall Division III win-loss percentage. Out of curiosity, does that come up in conversation? Does a conversation of going, hey, we got 2 more wins in this group because they played a couple more games outside Division III, does that become relevant?
I think it absolutely does at times.
So if you're going to the secondary, that overall resume is important, even if it's non-Division III opponents.
If we have to go to secondary.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. I don't think I've ever asked to fully understand how much that number comes into play. That's why I asked that. Head to head against non-D3s or something, that one becomes a little bit more rare because we don't have that much crossover, right, Mike?
Yeah, I can't recall ever using that criteria in any situation where we've had a common non-Division III opponent. I don't remember ever having that come into play.
Okay.
Me neither, to the point that I had to look it up to make sure I had it right.
Okay, first off, that might mean you used it once, but second of all, that's fascinating that it's never been used. I mean, we don't think it ever comes up. It's great to hear committee members going, we don't use it. And not that you don't, it's just you don't have any reason to. So the other one is the non-conference SOS, correct? And listen, this is a little bit of a sticky point. I realize for everybody. Ryan Scott, by the way, for anybody who's watching at home, did a fascinating story today about the non-conference SOS, the metrics that are being used, the math that's being equated, whatever the term is, and didn't really say right or wrong. It's more about we want to understand this number better. And I think for a number of years, a lot of us have not understood the number. I'm not trying to understand if it's the right metric or the wrong metric. I'm still trying to wrap my head around of what is the metric. And so the only question I've got for you guys really is, what is the metric? Do you have a sense of what that actual metric is, and when you're using that data, what it's actually telling you?
Yeah, so the secondary part of that question, Dave, I don't, so what I understand it to be, let me put it this way, is it is measuring a team's non-conference schedules, non-conference opponents. And so to put it in context, if Wheaton plays Platteville, we are actually measuring Platteville's non-conference opponents, not the Wisconsin League. So when they play Whitewater, that game doesn't count in our it counts in our
in the SOS.
It counts in Platteville's SOS, which then counts in our SOS.
Right.
But our non-conference SOS is actually measuring Wisconsin Platteville's non-conference schedule. That's how I understood it. And Dave, if I'm honest with you, I don't know that is how I understood it prior to I thought Ryan did an unbelievably great job with the article. I thought it was very fair and balanced. He didn't suggest this isn't how we're supposed to do it. He just said this probably is a little different than people understood it to be.
Right.
And the reason, as I understand it, it's done that way is to try to reduce, and Ryan talks about it in the article, to try to reduce the idea that we're going to duplicate too many results in both of them. So in essence, if we're measuring all of Oshkosh's schedule, or Platteville's schedule, to use my example, including somewhat, you're almost at times starting to do SOS and non-conference SOS will start to overlap,
sure,
perhaps more than the example that we gave about what it's actually measuring. So when you start to debate what's the value of it, Dave, my honest answer to that, I don't know that I'm smart enough to know exactly what that is. But what I do know is I believe it's being applied consistently across not only basketball, but across the other sports, and being applied in a way that we're being asked to use it. So Meg and I both tell you we are not creators of criteria. We're just appliers of criteria. So
you don't create the criteria?
We're going to, people sometimes get frustrated with us. And I always tell people we can have a conversation about what I do or do not like about the criteria. That's a perfectly reasonable conversation. But in my role as a committee chair, I have to have the integrity and consistency to follow it as it's written currently. So we use the non-conference SOS as it's intended. It may not be exactly how people understood it, but it won't change how we use it going forward, simply because maybe there's been a little bit of an enlightened perspective on what the actual non-conference SOS is covering.
I like how you said that, enlightened perspective on that. That's a good way of putting it. Megan, let me ask you this, and I will move on because I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on this. It's something I don't think anybody fully understands, and we'll get there. But do you have any concern when you're comparing two teams? Let's say one of them has very few non-conference games, and so that number can vary widely, especially if they're playing against opponents who don't have a lot of non-conference game opportunities, versus somebody else who has a wealth of non-conference games, and that number is going to vary a little bit less. In other words, a difference of one game might not shift the number dramatically, if I understand how the math would work. Are you worried that then trying to compare that is almost an apples to oranges because you don't have the whole story?
I think that's probably true, but I think that's similar in some of the primary categories. There are conferences that have the ability to play many more ranked teams simply because of their geographic location. So I will say, I think once results versus ranked opponents came into play as a primary criteria, we had to use the secondary or non-conference SOS much less. Getting that additional primary category really kind of helps. You're able to dig into those wins and losses versus ranked opponents. And I think that is pretty telling, and we don't have to go to that as much. So do I think there's disparity in it? Quite possibly. Do I think there is in some of the primary criteria as well? I do.
Sure.
Some teams have a lower SOS simply because of the conference they're in.
Yeah.
They don't have control over that, right? And so it's hard for them, except for when they're scheduling those non-conference games, to try to build that up a little bit.
It feels like the non-conference SOS is about the only thing they can truly control to some degree. I'm a little being simplistic there.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go down the rabbit's hole too far.
I really appreciate Megan's answer there, Dave, because I think both committees work really hard to make decisions on the primary criteria.
Oh, sure.
We really do try to say, if you can decide it in the terms we use on page 1, that's where we do it. I appreciate the way Megan, we don't do it quite as often as maybe people get concerned that we do.
Well, I appreciate that. By the way, if you ever need to add another secondary criteria, one suggestion I have, I'm just spitballing a little bit here, is the Hoopsville Super Crew. We can put one together and give you our perspective on what team should go where. It's just a thought, just a thought. We'll be very selective in our crew too. I assure you. Let's go back to the top 16 then. So knowing all that criteria and understanding that, can you give me an understanding here of, you say you've done this work before, and Megan, we'll start with you. What is the purpose now of that top 16? Other than obviously it's a talking point, it's driving us in the final 10 days here before the brackets are revealed. We're getting to chat with you an extra time, which I appreciate it. But from the purpose of the committee, what's that top 16 represent for you?
I think right now it represents the top 16 teams as we see them at this point in time. It was an opportunity to be able to take the top 10 teams from the region and put them on the board. And once a team from a region was selected, then we brought the next team onto the board, much like we're going to do in 10 days. So I think it created some excitement. I think we're all really excited to finally be preparing for a championship that we think is going to happen. And it was just I can't say it enough. It was just a good activity and exercise for the committee to go through. I think it was necessary. It is a lot of primary criteria. It is a lot of things to think about and comparisons across regions. And there's plenty of people out there tweeting at you that probably don't think we got it right? But doing this exercise once and maybe reflecting on what we did and making sure we stay consistent is only going to help us in 10 days.
Mike, to that point, do we read anything into it? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a sense of, okay, these are the most likely teams, if the tournament were to start now, barring extenuating circumstances, that would be hosting.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that if we were to start the tournament today without viewing the results that took place since Sunday,
right,
that many of these teams would be hosting without looking at it deeply. So to know how geography would play into this and the 600 miles, that type of stuff. But these are the teams, if we were doing it today, you would start with to say, are these the teams that should be hosting? That's an absolutely fair conclusion to draw, with the caveat of we're not going to use this to in any way, shape, or form to decide whether these are the teams that are hosting. But yeah. But if it were today, Dave, no question, this is who the teams you would start with to say these teams you would start with this list to try to figure out how many of these teams could host, given geography and the other limitations. No question. That's part of why we do this top 16.
You literally dangled the fruit and then took it away right as we grabbed for it. Megan, to that point, well, Mike, I'll start with you. To that point, I mean, another factor here, and those of us who know how the system works, it obviously probably won't be the top 16 who host. You've got 3 Wisconsin teams in here. You've got some interesting Northeast teams. I think some people would jump out and see Mass Dartmouth in there and take note of that. So obviously not all of this is going to be able to come together the way you want it to.
Yeah, no, and you're obviously going to have teams that are in this top 16 today that won't be there in 11 days because of results one way or the other. So, and we paid, when we did this one, we paid no attention to any of those concerns. It was literally the best 16 resumes. And we didn't say, well, we can't put 3 Wisconsin teams this high up because they all can't host. That was not part of the process here. So really, in reality, Dave, it's very, very unlikely that the actual best 16 resumes come Selection Sunday end up being for hosts for a variety of reasons.
Well, and we have the men
but
host.
you certainly
Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. For Megan, it's actually more complicated, the opening rounds, because there's a few teams that appear in both of our lists. And so, this year, as people know, it rotates. This year, it'll be the men that have the first weekend in terms of hosting, if both men and women are on pace to host. So it is a little more complicated for Megan's side. There'll be a few teams that probably can't host on the women's side because the men may be involved.
I was walking my way into that one because, and Ryan Scott just noticed it on Twitter as well, if you happen to be watching live, the number 1 team on the women's side is Christopher Newport. The number 6 team on the men's side is Christopher Newport. If we were to take it at face value right now, Megan, you've already lost the number 1 team that you have per se as being a host, because conceivably the men would be using that, and that's got to be a bit of a caveat here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's tough with those, those stipulations every other year, but I think a lot of times that's what coaches and teams want to know, right? Who are the top 16 teams? And I think we all know well enough in Division III, the top 16 teams aren't necessarily the teams that are hosting those first and second rounds because of everything that comes into play. So I think this was exciting for us to kind of do where we see them right now and just put that out there. And, again, everybody's just super excited for the next 11 days and what's to come.
Looking at it, just trying to read between the leaves a little bit, trying to understand what everything goes. I mean, people are going to jump out. Wow, Hope is sitting 12, despite having been, for most part, the number 1 team in the country in top 25 ballots. Oh, interesting. You got Transylvania number 2, rightly or wrongly. I'm not asking for actual detail, but was there a certain direction, Megan, that your committee is leaning in terms of looking at that criteria, that you do favor the win-loss percentage because the team's gotten this far and has a good record? Or is the SOS dominating some of those conversations? Again, I know you can't go into detail. I'm not trying to put you there, but is there a way you can give us an understanding of how these conversations have been shaking out?
Yeah, I think it's just right in that region. There's 3 really, really great. I mean, the top 3 in that region are very solid resumes. And so sometimes it's splitting hairs, and, we just got through regional rankings and we felt like we got that right. So we continued with that in our top 16. So it's not one area that's outweighing another. I think that, the teams that are left have a very high win-loss percentage. We didn't have a team in the top 16 that was ranked with a below a 5.515 maybe SOS, and many of them have not only quality, but a lot of ranked wins at this point. So it wasn't a matter. Sometimes you get into those triangles too, where they have head-to-head in regions and Team A is beat Team B. Team B is beat Team C. You can't get Team C above Team A. So sometimes we have to work through some of those things and just make judgment calls. So that region's tough. They're all very strong, trying Hope to paw really, really good resumes.
Mike, on the flip side, and I know it's a little bit unfair to maybe make this comparison because there are more losses on the men's side than there are in women in general. Just to the parity we're talking about, though, the women's side certainly shown more parity this year. That said, the women have a handful of teams that might have 3 losses. The rest have less than that. The men, the vast majority have 3, 4, or 5 losses, and I'm looking at SOS numbers that are sky high. Again, the men always seem to have this battle between rewarding a good win-loss percentage versus winning or rewarding a good strength of schedule. It feels like that tug of war is leaning towards SOS. Is it fair to say that, or am I missing something obvious?
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that, although I would add this to it. People always get asked, do we favor winning percentage or SOS? And my answer is it depends. And you know, those sort of put the bookends of it. What we're looking for are those numbers in the middle. And so, if you look at the men's top 16, you're going to start to see sort of some numeric consistency with regionally ranked wins. And so we're looking for teams that have strong winning percentages, high SOS, but who have you beaten in the midst of that? So typically, not always, Dave, but typically teams with high SOS numbers have played more regionally ranked opponents, typically. That's not an absolute, but typically, and therefore have opportunities to win a few more of those games. So when we lean towards SOS, some of it is because those teams with high SOS, our top team would be an example, Oshkosh, has a high SOS, but they also have 9 regionally ranked wins. That's kind of the combination we're looking for, both and so we struggle with the two resumes where it's a high winning percentage, low SOS, and very limited regionally ranked results. But we also struggle with a low winning percentage, high SOS, but maybe they're 1-6 or 1-7 against their region ranked opponents. That's not necessarily a better resume either. What we're looking for is a little bit of the balance between a strong winning percentage, strong SOS, that manifests itself into that next category of we've beaten some really good people who are regionally ranked throughout the country. That's the balance maybe on the men's side that we're looking for, and kind of the rhythm we're trying to find through the process.
To back that up to the conversation we have about the SOS and the non-conference SOS, it feels like sometimes when we're looking at criteria that it overlaps a ton and we're not differentiating necessarily. You talk about a strong SOS, but also a lot of results versus regionally ranked as a result of that. Well, we were just talking about SOS and trying to make sure the non-conference SOS didn't overlap too much. Does maybe and I'm realizing I'm throwing a hypothetical here, but does maybe the criteria overlap too much and there's got to be a way to differentiate it a little bit more? Yeah, that's the best way I can ask it.
I think there's definitely circumstances where it overlaps, and sometimes more than others. You could have a head-to-head over a team in your conference that is ranked, and so now you're getting credit for that in a head-to-head win. You're getting credit for a win-loss. You're getting credit for it in a ranked win and strength of schedule all. So that's a lot of overlap for one game, right? And You try not to put too much significance on a single game. It's their total resume, but absolutely, I think there's overlap in some instances more than others.
To that point, win-loss percentage, at some point you're grinding along through a 25-game schedule. You've dropped just one game. No matter what your strength of schedule was, you got through 25 games with barely a blemish. Do people debate whether that SOS is taking too much impact over an overall great season by a team? I worry. I'm looking at a Webster women's basketball team who could very easily go undefeated. And we're talking about Lancaster Bible all over again on the men's side from a few years ago, where they take one loss in the conference tournament that could be out despite getting through a conference that knows them well and despite having an undefeated season all but that one game.
Yeah, I'll dive in here. I think those resumes, I'm going to answer kind of the same way, which is you go kind of from the two bookend things into the middle. So if teams are, 22-1, 23, 22-2, but they don't have results against regionally ranked opponents and the low so assuming that they also have the low SOS, we're kind of looking for evidence that have you beaten anybody of substance and merit nationally or within your region? And if that doesn't exist, Dave, particularly now that we are ranking so many teams that go into this process with one or none regionally ranked wins, their resumes are going to eventually start to struggle to keep up because so many teams have regionally ranked wins now because we're ranking so many more teams. So I always answer the situation where you have a team that's 22-1, 21-2, whatever the case may be, with a relatively low SOS by saying, are there any numbers in the middle? And if there aren't, then yeah, those resumes are going to have a hard time keeping up with teams who are 19-6 with a 580 SOS and 6 regionally ranked wins. Those resumes are going to start to say, well, those teams have wins against some really good opponents.
Just because I circle back, you kind of make an interesting point, but we talk about low SOS and then trying to work into the middle. But by default, we just also said a high SOS tends to result in a lot of regional ranked. So common criteria is kind of meshing together. A low SOS results in not a lot of regional ranked opponents. Again, the criteria is kind of meshing together. The two seem to handshake each other along the way. That's where I'm wondering if sometimes there has to be a conversation to be of, listen, all this criteria tends to be in this panel or in this road, and all this criteria tends to be in this road. We can't seem to break it up. Does that make sense? I don't know if I said that right.
Yes. Are you asking Megan and I if we would change the criteria somehow?
No, I'm wondering if the conversation maybe is, we got to understand, yes, we're working from bookends. I totally get that, makes sense. But that bookend is always the same. If it's a high SOS, we're always seeing results versus regionally ranked. If it's a low SOS, we're always seeing low numbers in regionally ranked. Somehow that bookend is a good one, but it doesn't always steer us in this. It always steers us in the same direction, and it always comes up with the same conversation. And maybe that's not the conversation we should be having, I guess is the best way I can say it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true, right? Like when you have a low SOS and some of those things are out of your control. I think we had conversations about teams like that today that, it was really hard not to have them in the top 16. They really haven't done anything to hurt themselves, right? Like, so
right.
It's hard for us to say they haven't even had a mistake yet. Like, yes, that may be their SOS, but they also have won every game they played, or, so I think those are tough conversations, but it's hard, like Mike said, when you're looking at all the primary criteria, how they stack up with the criteria as is.
And I'm not asking if you would change your criteria because I already know what the answer is going to be.
What's that?
No comment. Yeah, I'm not putting you guys on the spot before we get done with the process because it's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to solve anything. I appreciate it. I've taken a lot of your time. I know you've had a long day, a couple of weeks, couple of days, etc. You got more time ahead of you. I appreciate the insight. We'll obviously talk more about this as the road goes further. Maybe I'll have a better way of asking what I did at the end. It just kind of hit me there with the way you were describing it, and I was trying to figure out the best way to ask it. So it was a little bit on the fly, but I do appreciate the time. The top 16 is kind of cool. I'm just saying maybe next week. Why not? Let's just do it one more time. Make everybody talk going into the weekend. Megan, any final thoughts for those who may be tuned in?
Just thanks for having us. Blue looks great on you. Keep that going for the next 10 days and super excited about what's to come. Championships. It's exciting.
My wife will tell you I've got a lot of blue. Being red-green colorblind, I lean on blue hard. Mike, any final thoughts for those tuned in?
Yeah, I'd actually like to thank Megan. I mean, this is an example of an increased effort of men's and women's committees trying to work together to sort of achieve some momentum collectively towards building some buzz around our sport and around Division III basketball, and just appreciated her committee's work. This was a lot of work, extra work to get this out by both committees. And so just thank Megan that we kind of jointly did this together, and we're doing something that I think most people went, that's kind of cool, and certainly appreciate you having us on, Dave.
Well, thank you for letting us be a part of it. Fun to see Will Haskett again. Glad to see it. I mean, it's something to talk about at least. It's something for us to kind of chew on, as it were, as part of our meal ahead of the conference tournaments. Hey, thanks all. Mike, good luck to you in the conference tournament as the regular season finishes up. Megan, you can just sit back and relax a little bit. You don't have to sweat it too much, right?
Yeah, just sit back and watch Mike's games.
There you go. Well done. Hey, y'all, take care. Thanks very much. And you can take the PJ pants off now. I know what you're really wearing. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Megan Wilson, Mike Schauer joining us here on Hoopsville. Really appreciate their time. Not sure if I got everybody's questions answered. I think it's a pipe dream to get there. I don't know if anybody understood what I was trying to get at the end. I don't know. It's the idea that a high SOS automatically results in with a lot of results versus regionally ranked. I get that. Low SOS results in not a lot of that. I get that too. But I worry that if that's the momentum as you work on the bookend and work in, you're always going to have the same conversation. We're always going to leave out teams that I think still have good seasons. Again, I talked about this back with Lancaster Bible. It feels like it needs to be more of a bell curve, that at some point that SOS just has to be ignored if a team has had an absolutely like a one-loss season in the NC and isn't at large. Basically they lost in the conference tournament, which meaning they played a team a third time most likely. Or on the flip side of that, at some point an SOS just can't carry, or the win-loss at some point can't carry any water, just like the SOS shouldn't be carrying water. And at some point they both should, but it's got to be in the middle somewhere, not on the polar opposites. We've seen teams get in on really strong SOSs because they have a lot of results versus regionally ranked, but they don't have a great win-loss. They have a less than 667 win-loss percentage, a less than 70, wherever you want to write your benchmark. And I think that's where that conversation is fascinating. Going to take a break. We'll get into our interviews with other guests. Farmingdale? Who am I talking to next? Farmingdale State. Yeah, that's who I'm talking to. They beat Yeshiva a couple weeks ago. Yeshiva's playing St. Joe's. We'll keep an eye on that game as we roll along, but we'll talk to Farmingdale State coming up in Skyline action. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying it. Back with more after this.
Why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein. Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely...
We're good. Yeah, it's just that little click. I wanted to get the commercial off, but I didn't click it off. Anyway, welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. We're simulcasting on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Thank you, Phil. It's College Conference of the South. That's what I'm trying to figure out. We broke that news this week. By the way, at this point, I guess we break another conference news next week. I don't have any on my radar, but I'll let you know. Maybe somebody else does. We've got questions for us. You can also tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Keeping track of scores from around Division III, Yeshiva and St. Joe's. The number 5 St. Joe's versus number 24 Yeshiva is underway at Yeshiva. And it's early. It's a minute in. 5-0 Yeshiva. We'll keep an eye on that. Mary Hardin Baylor and Maryville are all playing tonight as well on the men's side. On the women's side, Mary Hardin Baylor, East Texas Baptist, and Hardin Simmons are playing. Speaking of Yeshiva, as I just mentioned, they do have a couple losses in conference, which has stunned a lot of people. The first one, which always gets more attention, is one against Farmingdale State. As a result of that, Farmingdale State is having a bang-bang season. They're 13-2 now in conference play, 17-7 overall, but because of their win against Yeshiva, should they beat or win their last game up on the docket, which is SUNY Old Westbury coming up, They're going to be the top seed in the Skyline Conference. Talk about twists, right? Joining us to talk about it, all that fun on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline is Brendan Twomey. I said it right, Coach? Good. I panicked there for a minute. Brendan Twomey from Farmingdale State talks about his squad. Hey, Coach, first and foremost, congratulations on a great season, because what's overshadowing here on the 17-7 mark is the fact you're already better than the 2018-2019 or 2019-2020 season that you had. And really, for the most part, you're having a better season than you guys normally do on average. And, oh, by the way, you have a win over Yeshiva on top of that. So you're just playing with house money at this point. You're having an awesome season.
Yeah, we're having a good year. I didn't really know what to expect coming into this year. We had no season last year. The previous season, 19-20, we graduated 6 seniors who had a great run. They had 2 championships, but I lost a lot. So we brought in 9 freshmen and a couple transfers. So I really know what to expect this year. The first semester took a little time for them to get used to playing with each other, but also took me some time to get used to coaching them, trying to figure out what matchups and, who plays well with who. But it seems like, they kept working hard, and, come January, they started to gel a little bit, and we're playing well right now.
Certainly playing well. That's the other thing that jumped out at me about your season too, is that the start of it was rough. Lost 3 of your first 4. You lost, sorry, I'm doing quick math because I forgot to do it. 5 of your first 7, 6 of your first 10. Listen, at any point, and I've been through some rough seasons myself in soccer, at any point midway through the season, you're sitting with that and you're like, we're good, Coach. Thanks very much. We're just going to ride this one out. Turned it around with a win over Ramapo on the 18th of December, got a little bit of a break, got into conference play. You've lost once since. Is it because you got into conference play and your team's maybe more geared towards the conference? Or is it just that break gave you guys all a chance to reset, kind of come together as a group, and finally get things rolling in the right direction?
I think maybe a little bit because conference play was coming up, but I think our guys were just working really hard. And I kept telling them, don't worry about the results. It's going to take some time for us to gel a little bit. The wins will come. Just keep working hard. And they've done that. They've really worked their butt off, every day. Come January and February, conference play, every game's important. They've done a good job of just focusing on the next game. And so far, that's all we're worried about. And like you said, if we win Saturday, we'll be the number 1 seed.
Well, that's the thing, is you got that big win over Yeshiva. So not only do you have that momentum coming, but you had that game against Yeshiva on the 5th. And let's remember, going back, you played them back on December 1st. It was a 14-point loss, 80-66 at your place. So not only do you have to maybe get that one back, but you got to do it at their place, which is not the easiest place to play, let's be honest. What was the difference between those 2 games, those 2 situations, outside of what it looked like to us, like Yeshiva just wasn't on the right page themselves?
Well, that first game at our place, we had a couple guys sick, and it wasn't COVID, surprisingly. But we didn't have our full squad. We played them tough, but Yeshiva's a tough team. They're top 25, for a reason. And then we just had a bunch of games. We had a couple months to kind of, gel a little bit, get a little bit more experience with some of my younger guys. And we played really well. I mean, Yeshiva's a great team, tough place to play, obviously. We just played a really good game. My guys were ready to play. They stepped up in that game. And, but I think, Yeshiva's, obviously the best team in our league. They won it, 2 years ago when we had a full season. So, someone's going to have to knock them off in the playoffs for sure.
Well, you guys certainly got them in the regular season, and you continue to roll from there. You didn't have any trap from that. You beat St. Joseph's Long Island, Mount St. Vincent, and St. Joseph's Brooklyn since then. And now, again, in the driver's seat, you get a chance to be the number 1 seed should you get the win over SUNY Old Westbury. And obviously that's important because you don't have to drive into New York if you can avoid it. You can force everybody to have to deal with traffic and come out to the middle of Long Island.
Yeah, no, the number 1 seed in our conference is big because then you don't have to travel, obviously. We usually get pretty good crowds for the playoffs. This will be I think the 4th time in 5 years that we've been the number 1 seed and won the regular season. So we just got to take care of business on Saturday.
Let's talk a little bit about this squad. Pretty good team in terms of statistics. When you jump out at you, looking at, how you guys distribute the ball and all that fun stuff. You got 4 guys in double figures, 3 more with 7 more points. You're outscoring your opponents by a few, but you've got a large group there that certainly gets you through it. You shoot also 58%. I think if the only thing that jumps out at me that might be a little odd, I'm sorry, I read the wrong line there. You shoot 44%. Other teams tend to shoot pretty well too. So is this a team that needs to offensively kind of get itself a win, or can you lean on yourselves a bit as well?
Well, that's what we've been working on. We've been working on our defense. We know come playoff time, you're going to have to get some stops, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we do. We have a lot of weapons offensively. We have probably 5 or 6 guys that can go off for 15, 20, each night, depending on the night. So, offensively, we've done a good job of sharing the ball, depending on the night, who's hot and stuff like that. But, I think definitely coming down the stretch this next week, we got to really work on the defensive end, try to get some stops. That's how you win games, getting stops, late in the shot clock and at the end of the game.
Sitting on a 9-game winning streak here. Obviously, you got the big win over Yeshiva. What was it? That was the Maccabees' first conference loss. I forgot to mention this since 2019 when you guys beat them in the Skyline Championship game. Dominique, is it Sene? Sene. See, I overthought it. Senior leading your team with 13.2 points a game, 7.8 rebounds per contest as well. Corey Powell, the sophomore, 11.5 points a game. Nick Horowitz at 11.4 points per game, 6.2 rebounds. He had a double-double, 12 and 13, or double-double in 12 of the 13 games during this streak. That's outstanding. And Aaron Davis doubled at 10.6 points as well. Again, it's that 4 that are in double figures. Gives you a lot of options, I would think, on the offensive end. If you can't get A to work, you got B, you even have C, and you might even have D.
Yeah, like I said, we have a bunch of guys that could score the ball depending on the night, and we've done a good job of sharing the ball. Just to speak a little bit on Nick, he had 12 out of the last 13. He's had double doubles. I think overall his rebounding and his work on the defensive end has really helped us. This last month and a half. And then Corey Powell, our sophomore guard, he guards the best player, on the team. He's a great defender. He does a great job on the defensive end, individually guarding his man and also as a team defender. So, it depends on the night for us offensively. I'm hoping down the stretch here, we could come together as a team defensively and really do a good job.
Yeah, I was going to say, so at this point in the season, how do you get the defense to, I'm not going to say suddenly become the star because that's not the right way of saying it, but how do you get the defense to take that next step to become a significant factor? Is it that you just worry about it on a game-to-game basis? We just need this game. We just need this game, guys. Or do you worry about it on a more cultural, on a more longer-term structure, if that makes any sense?
Well, with the amount of new guys that we had this year, I knew it was going to take time because normally, year in and year out, we're a pretty good defensive team. And I think in the last month, we've done a good job, individually guarding our man and also, a team aspect of it, working together as a team to get stops. So I just think the more that we play together, the more experience that we had together on the floor. So I think it just took a little bit of time for us defensively. And, in the last 2-3 weeks, we've done a good job.
We should point out, you're a graduate of this conference at Mount St. Mary. You know this conference well. You kind of did pretty well in it yourself. Preseason All-American by some publications, in fact. You then got into the coaching side of things, and you got a wealth of experience outside of the division, outside of this conference, and then you came back. I suspect some of it meant coming home, but more importantly, what were you able to bring from your experiences outside the area that you think has made an impact so far with the program and the conference?
I think, my time at Stevens, with Coach Hurley really helped me out. He did a good job teaching me the ropes. I was a first-time assistant coach when he was his first year as a head coach. So we were learning together. He did a great job preparing me for when I was a head coach. And I think just coming back to the conference, there was a couple coaches that were still coaching when I was a player. I think Bernard Tomlin of Westbury is the only one still here.
Oh, wow.
From when I was a player.
He's calling right now, thanking you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that I had to compete against him as a player and now, as a coach. But me and Bernard have a really good relationship. He does a great job at Old Westbury. But yeah, I think just being familiar with the conference definitely helped a little bit. And the support that I get at Farmingdale with my athletic directors, they're great. It's been a great ride. So this is my 9th season.
Yeah.
Last year we didn't have a season, so this is my 8th coaching, but I've been there for 9 years now.
Everybody's been doing it different. I ran into a team last night that was the actual season versus the team I'm calling it was the actual season versus how many years they've been there. It's wonky. We don't even know on the roster when we look at it what we're believing. Per the conference, and you talk about one coach probably still there since your coaching day or your playing days. How much has the conference changed? And obviously Yeshiva has changed because Yeshiva wasn't really all that much of a competitive team probably when you were playing. Oh, well, competitive isn't the right word, but they certainly weren't one of the top teams in the nation, yet alone the region. But how much has changed overall from top to bottom outside of just the max?
It's a tough question. You talk about from when I was a player or just as I've been started coaching?
Well, even if it's from just the coaching perspective, but how much, obviously as a coach, you know more about the recruiting and you know about the strategy and the competitiveness maybe more than you did as a player. But has the conference changed? Maybe the conference hasn't changed. I'm just curious what that dynamic's been like.
Yeah, when I was a player, Merchant Marine Academy and Manhattanville were in our conference, and then they left. All right, and now they're back in. So when I first started coaching, they weren't there, and now they're back. But yeah, after that, pretty much all the teams are the same. Sarah Lawrence joined. I'm trying to think. We have 12 teams, so I'm trying to think.
Is the competitiveness the same? Is the recruiting battles similar? Are they different with your conference mates?
No, I think our conference is very competitive. I go up against some of the other state schools for recruits. Some of the private schools in our conference. I definitely don't go up against Yeshiva in recruiting. That's for sure.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah. But overall, I think our conference is very competitive.
Not to beat the Yeshiva train too much, but I am kind of curious. What do you think went well in that game? What did you guys take into that game that you thought you could take advantage of? And did you execute like you thought you would?
We did. We executed very well. We shot the ball very well. We shot over 50% that game. So that's always going to help. We've had success against Yeshiva over the last couple of years. So, going into the game, my guys were pretty confident. We know how good they are. They could score the ball. Ellie does a good job coaching those guys up. They got tremendous scores on their team. So, we definitely have to execute our game plan. But I think overall, my guys played well on the road. It was a great crowd. It was a great environment. Hopefully, we take care of business. These next couple of games, maybe we'll see them again. The
Skyline, not considered one of the more competitive conferences in terms of national exposure. And obviously I realize it's competitive from on a X's and O's team-to-team status. But I mean, overall nationally doesn't tend to get a big bang for their buck. Every once in a while something shines through and you guys get the attention a little bit. Is it because everybody has, and you talk about difference in private and public, so this may not be relevant, but is it everybody has a similar player? Is it something else that goes on there? Or do you guys have, and I mean this genuinely, do you have a different perspective / goal in mind that the national stuff's nice, but it's not the priority?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to get recognized nationally, obviously. But for us, I think, the way I approach it is, we're going to have to win our conference. I think I play a pretty good non-conference schedule, but you're pretty much going to have to win the Skyline, to get in.
Yeah.
So that's why we focus so much, me personally, we focus a lot on just our conference. Our non-conference games definitely prepare us for the conference schedule come January and February, but we just try to focus on our conference.
You're one of those teams that gets NYU on your non-conference schedule. There's a lot of schools I know who'd like to play NYU who can't seem to do that. What's the secret in the sauce, Coach?
In terms of scheduling?
Yeah, how do you get NYU on your schedule? I want to help others who want to get them.
I've known Dagan for a while.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps a little bit. We were looking for a home and home to start.
Oh, nice.
So it was just kind of the right place, right time. He was looking for a game. I was looking for a game. So we're going to return the game to I think we're going to open up their new facility next year.
Oh, that'll be cool. Yeah. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
By the way, if you have to go down 6 stories, please let us know. We want a video of you going down 6 stories. Looking at your schedule, you don't have a lot outside your immediate region. Wesleyan's about as far a team as I can find. And even then, if you get a good boat, you can just go right across the bay. That said, is that because you just don't have the ability? Well, first off, getting off Long Island, I know, is the least easy thing to do. Speaking of taking a boat, that might be the better choice. But is it because the travel's a little bit tough, or is there just general restrictions, not written, but with classes and all that it's just you don't have that option?
No, I mean, I think we have a lot of good teams, in our area that I don't have to travel that far.
That's a fair point, yeah.
Play, good NJAC teams. Jersey's obviously close.
Yes.
Connecticut, upstate New York. So we don't really have to travel that far, to get good games. I don't know. Maybe I should look into, some trips. Maybe my guys.
No, I was just curious. No, I'm totally curious. I agree with you. You definitely have a cacophony of good teams that you could pick from. But, some teams want to go to Vegas, or some teams might want to go to California, maybe down to Florida for a trip. And then some have flat out said to me, no, we with our academic rigors or our travel restrictions or our budget, that's just not an option. So I was just kind of varying it. We just haven't had that conversation with a lot of Skyline teams, and I was kind of curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, there's so many good teams within 2 or 3 hour radius. So that's pretty much what we stick to.
What's the message with the team? You got one game left, obviously a big game, because you win this game, you get to control things through your home court, and I know that's important. So what's the message to the team in the locker room, in the practice before a game, to make sure they understand that without being overwhelmed?
Yeah, we've done a good job of kind of taking it game by game. So it's just take that same approach for Saturday. We had a pretty good practice today. Hopefully have another good practice tomorrow, and just be focused. Just be focused for Saturday, because after Saturday, you have one bad night and you're going home.
As a former player, is senior day a little bit more emotional? Or is it just another day with a distraction?
No, I don't think it as a distraction, because we really get to know our players and their families. So it's good to have the families there, see them, and, hopefully we play well for the seniors that night. I only have one senior. We actually had our senior night on last Saturday. What'd you say?
Mental note to the conference, just one senior.
We actually had our senior night this past Saturday.
Oh, okay.
So we're actually just gonna, play Old Westbury. There's no senior day festivities.
Gotcha. Yeah, people are moving senior days around a little more often these days. So it's totally, I like it. I kind of dig it. Hey, Coach, appreciate it. I just felt like spitballing a few things there with you, and I appreciate you taking the time to kind of humor me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great job on the team. Congratulations on everything, including the win over Yeshiva, but also on top of the conference. That stood out to me, certainly. We always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
No, first I would like to just, thank you and all you guys do at D3 Hoops for promoting, our game. You guys do a great job. I mean, I'm on D3 Hoops, 10, 15 times a day, checking stuff out. And also just want to wish all the coaches, good luck down the stretch here. Good luck in the playoffs.
Well said, Coach. Well, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way, and we'll look forward to talking to the Rams a little bit later.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Brendan Twomey joining us here on the Hoopsville Blue Frame Technology Hotline. Again, SUNY Old Westbury coming up, and then it's the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals of the Skyline. They changed it a little bit this year. It'll be fun to watch. It'll be a good tournament, I suspect. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk... let's see, where are we headed next? It's totally forgot. Oh, yeah, Hope men's basketball. Greg Mitchell talking about the big win in the rivalry. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro.
That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
Welcome back to Hoopsville as we go rolling along on this show. We still have up ahead of us Penn State Barron women's basketball coach Christine Van Hook will join us. Scranton women's basketball coach Nico DePillo will join us. Also, Whitman women's basketball coach Michelle Ferentz will join us. But up next, we talk about the rivalry. Now, there's a lot of you out there who want to talk about your rivalry, and I will give you your rivalry. But the rivalry, according to those who are in Western Michigan, features Hope and Calvin. And if you might remember on Monday's show, the question was raised to our top 25 panel, who was going to win on Wednesday at Hope, Calvin or Hope? The voting was split, 3-2 in favor of Calvin, and everybody worried about the Hoopsville Jinx. Apparently, that was the Hoopsville Jinx to Calvin's fans because Hope did win at home. I picked them, kind of barely picked Hope to win that. I kind of shot in the dark. Myself and Coach Rainiac did that. Well, it would be remiss not to talk about the rivalry. The only reason we haven't up until this point was Hope and Calvin didn't seem to be having the seasons we're prototypically used to from those squads. But have you looked recently? Both teams are actually having really good seasons. And the team that was picked to finish fourth in the conference has won the conference. It's been that good a season. Joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline, the coach who's the team who won that conference regular season is Greg Mitchell from Hope. Coach, first and foremost, congratulations. Obviously, it's a rivalry game. We'll get into that in a bit. But you're having a better season than I think a lot of people expected. Is it just us, or are you having a better season than you expected?
Yeah, it's a great question. And first of all, thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, it's been a phenomenal season, and I think we lost a lot. We were graduated 6 seniors last year, including an all-region player, and but I don't know. There's something different about these guys, and sometimes definitely was not an addition by subtraction by any stretch of the imagination. But we had some guys that are ready to fill some roles and really immerse themselves in our culture and in each other. And I really think that's how we've risen to this level. A tough early and non-conference schedule kind of galvanized us, and we had a chance to look at who we were and find out areas of struggle. And then these guys just kind of bought in. And so I'd say a little bit surprised is a fair statement, but at the same time, complete belief in these guys because I saw the investment, in each other, which has been the biggest thing. And I think that's why we've been able to have the season that we've had.
Started the season, lost to Illinois Wesleyan by 13, then got a win against St. John's. I know that raised some eyebrows. And beat Benedictine, you beat Cornerstone, lost to Aquinas. To those who know the Cornerstone game, that raised some eyebrows. Lost to St. Thomas of Texas in St. Louis, then got an overtime win against Hendricks, and then lost to Platteville. So kind of a herky-jerky kind of start to the season. You were, 3-3? To be honest, I kind of sat there going, okay, that's kind of what I expected from Hope this year. At that point, at 3-3, were you guys okay? Did you guys feel that was a good start with some solid wins?
I'll be honest with you. When we went to St. Louis, and we left our point guard home. He had influenza, and so we didn't play with Clayton.
Oh, okay.
And then our best player, Evan Thomas, got hurt in that first game, and we got waxed. And so in the second game, we're starting a freshman at the point. It was smoke and mirrors, and we found a way to win, which to me was the first sign of, okay, it's not like we're a complete next man up mentality, but there's belief and there's a little grit and toughness about these guys. And so it was really, again, finding some depth in our bench, some guys that we could rely on. Obviously, getting our key guys healthy, but guys that are, and you get it, coaches that have done this long enough. There's a pulse and a vibe about your team, and there's just something about these guys and their collective chemistry is remarkable, and it shows up. We've had, honestly, like maybe one, I'd call it like a sideways practice where we just didn't have the energy, and I don't think it mattered what we did. We just probably should have gone home after 20 minutes. You had one of those. Other than that, every day's been a battle. We just get after each other, and there's a great rapport about them. So, not to wax poetic, but you learn a lot about them early, and if they buy into who they are and who they can be, and egos are checked at the door, and there's like a role responsibility, you got a chance. And our training staff did a heck of a job getting Evan back to health, and we had to battle some COVID issues, and we play our first couple of conference games down 3 starters, and we win those 2 games, and it was just, maybe there's something to this group, and we've continued to get better as the season has gone on, which is really what it's all about.
You lost to Platteville to get that 3-3 mark. You got the win against Stevens Point a week later, then a win against North Central in overtime, a win against Central down in Florida. Lost, by the way, that North Central game was in Florida too, if memory serves.
Correct. Yes.
And then from there, you got into conference play, as you said, and obviously a little bit of a herky-jerky because of conference action, but you've only lost twice. At home against Albion and on the road against Trine. Anything about those particular games that just didn't go your way?
Yeah, so the Albion game was a third game in 5 days. We had a makeup game in there. We opened with Trine, the league favorite, and beat them, I think, on that Monday. And then I think we got Calvin on Wednesday, and then we get Albion, who's just a really tough team in our conference as well. So no excuses, but it was just tough. I think our legs were a little lacking, but credit to Albion, they got after us. And I think the Trine loss, they were in a situation where they felt they could control their own destiny, and we went to their place after getting them at our place, and they were the better team. It was a great first half, and we just didn't handle them inside for a period in the second half, and got us. So those were 2 games that didn't go our way, but at the same time, we were still in a good spot to control our destiny. And I think this, our game last night, we earned the right to be in a game late in the season that mattered. And, our guys rose to the challenge and learned from the 2 losses, and, played a big game in a big environment at the right time. And, it felt really good.
You played Calvin back on January 12th, got the win at their place, 78-65, and you come back and get the win at home, 93-81, to win both rivalry games. Again, for a team that was picked to finish 4th, you mentioned Trine, who was picked to win the conference after coming off the headline season last year. They're 16-8 this year. They're not having as great a season as everybody expected. But the Calvin game in general always brings its own hype. It always brings its own atmosphere, and it always brings its own expectations, rightly or wrongly. You guys could be over, and your faithful are going to expect you to blow the doors off of Calvin, who might be undefeated. That's just how it comes. How do you balance the expectations and the hype and all of that come with those games to keep level-headed, especially late in the season, where you said that game means something? It's not just the rivalry. There's other things that impacts.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that it gets hyped up even more, because I'll be real. I mean, the pressure is there. You live it, you feel it. Everybody talks about it. The crowd is intense. The guys can't wait for it. Other games kind of pale in comparison, even though, hey, every 40 minutes is the same in the world of records and wins and losses, but it's coming. It's hard to balance it. I'll be completely honest with you, because nothing is like it. And, having played in it and being able to coach in it, number one, it's just a tremendous privilege that you have something like that means so much to so many. And then as far as the balance piece, we told our guys last night, we kind of compare it to an Ali Frazier fight in the first couple rounds. I don't know if you can feel your legs. You're just going to kind of jab each other, and there's not many haymakers early. Nobody's going to hit the canvas. You got to kind of survive it and then play basketball. And there are going to be many runs, and you don't win or lose it in the first couple minutes, but at the same time, you gotta get through that and then play. And then it comes down to defending, rebounding, and executing. And I thought it did last night. And there were a couple really important emotional runs that I thought our guys were really prepared for and responded the right way, which is also critical. But yeah, I don't know if we have the master recipe to balance it and truly figure it out, because it always takes on its own entity each time around. Because you're right, if we were 0 and we win that game, all of a sudden I'm a successful coach in Holland. But if we're undefeated and we lose it, maybe I got to check and see if there's a Ziggy next to my name. I don't have a job the next week because it means that much to people. So it's unique. It's awesome. There's nothing like it. And it's great because Calvin's great and we have great respect for each other. We're typically, two good programs fighting for the top of the league. So.
Well, and the other thing about this game that was insane was your two teams shot ridiculous. They were 29 of 54 at 53.7%. You guys were 30 of 46 at 65.2%. I mean, come on.
Okay, so complete transparency. We have not shot the ball well all year. No. We have not. Anybody who's followed us, we have not shot the ball well all year.
No.
We shoot about 40%. We finally eclipsed the magical 30% from the arc this week. But we're a top 5 team in the country at the free throw line. So all of a sudden we go into last night's game that means everything, and we field house record percentage. I can't understand it. I'll never profess to be an expert in the profession. But it does come to the point of believing in your guys and being confident, and they rose to the occasion, which was great timing and a little bit surprising to us, but I think it's almost a situation where we deserve it, because we're a really good shooting team in practice, and I don't know that always translates to games when the lights are on. And these guys deserved a night where the hoops felt a little bit bigger, and boy, it couldn't have come at a better time.
They like to shoot with the lights off, Coach. That's the
supposedly
trick.
Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure this one out.
You got 4 guys in double figures. You're led by Evan Thomas, the junior, at 19 points a game. He's pulling down, by the way, 8.6 rebounds a game. Hey, not too shabby. He's also handing out over 2 assists a game. You've got Clayton Dykehouse, 13.5 points a game, 4.5 rebounds a game, 3.5 assists a game. Tyler George, excuse me, 12 points a game. Jeff Bickus, 11.5 points a game. Again, solid. Bickus at nearly 6 rebounds a game. George certainly gets the job done as well. I know it's more than just those 4, but the next guy is half the points of Bickus. Mm-hmm. It feels like it's those 4 really are the core, at least on the offensive end, on how you guys click.
Yeah, and it's Bickus, just to give him some props. No, you're right.
Oh, yeah, it is Bickus. Sorry.
It's okay. It's all good. It's all good.
I knew that.
It's okay, man. It's all good. It's all good. It's really those 4 have been pretty consistent, and Evan has really been an elite player for us at both ends of the floor and on the glass. He really has taken his game to another level. And we always say we need 3 of those 4 to have good nights. And we lost Ty George with a stress fracture for a good 3 weeks, and he's just kind of now getting to the point where he feels good again. He had a great night last night. We're bringing him off the bench right now, and that's worked out well, and he's embraced that role. But when all 4 of those guys are playing well, we're pretty good. And there have been some games where we get 2 of those 4 that are playing well. And we've had some other guys step up. We got some role players, as every team does, that they're almost specialty players. I got a couple guys that really love to defend, and other guys that just, they could be a spot up shooter. They kind of help our motion offense click a little bit. And with the injuries that we had and the COVID stuff, other guys have had to step in and make plays. So I appreciate them. I think they enjoy what they're going through right now. They've, as I said before, they really embrace the we mentality, and they're getting some just rewards, which is a blast.
You played 17 guys significant time. The least amount is 5 games of the season. And normally at this point in the season, I'll see rosters that deep, but it's 1 or 2 games for that lower group. It's 5, 6, and then 8, and then it's double figures. You're going deep. I think most games you're going at least 10 players deep, and probably on average 12 players deep per game. That's good for resting, that's for sure. But what is it about those guys, as you said, role players I get, but some of those guys aren't necessarily knowing what role they've got on that given night, right?
Absolutely. And that can be very frustrating and dicey in the world of chemistry and buy-in. And that's why I double down on the character of these guys, though. If there's, an unsettled or, frustrated part, we don't really see it as coaches. And that's a credit to the trust these guys have in the locker room and all they've invested off the floor and in the preseason and, team retreats and things like that. We've had to play a lot of those guys, again, out of necessity because we just didn't have bodies at certain parts of the season. And, I think to me, that's all about, it's practice number 79 or 80 right now when guys truly love being at practice every day. Yeah. It's pretty easy to fall into that routine if you're that, 11th through 16th guy and you're not going to see it a whole lot. Or you're really bringing it every day. And our guys do. And that's, how critical that is to really solidify the value of the first, 8 or 10 guys that are really going to represent us. The other guys have to push us and they got to grind and embrace the scout team mentality. And we've had that, which we're very fortunate.
Speaking of critical, I suspect it's critical to make sure the conference comes through DeVos.
Absolutely. And, we've earned that opportunity. We want to finish the deal on Saturday. We have no interest in sharing anything, and we want to be at home all next week, which we do have a pretty cool place that a couple people like to show up and support us, which is great.
Just a couple, 2, 3, just maybe per seat. Speaking of not sharing anything, you don't want to share it with Calvin. I mean, there's double to this. It's not just sharing the conference regular season. It's the fact that it's Calvin.
Just sort of. I mean, again, full respect because there's no rivalry without each of us. Right. But there's no team we want to beat more, and they feel the same way about us. So no interest in sharing it with anybody, and certainly not them. And that would, that would not do justice to the investment we made last night on the floor.
Hey, quickly about this conference. For a long time, the MIA was the Hope Calvin show. And then there was everybody else who were just playing a supporting role for you two. Trine obviously had a spectacular season last year. It's come a long way. We saw it on the women's side, and then we see it on the men's. Albion has certainly stepped up. We've seen some improvement out of Adrian. Olivetti has even kind of shown its face a few times. How much has this conference changed, and how more competitive is it?
It's night and day. As a player, during my time at Hope and thereafter, I think there was a 40-year stretch where 38 of the 40 years, Hope or Calvin won the conference.
Yeah.
And, the 6 years prior to now, 6 different teams made the national tournament in a row, which that's just kind of unimagineable, right?
True.
I mean, Alma makes the Elite Eight, and Albion makes a national tournament. Adrian wins the conference tournament. Trine, Calvin, we kind of repeated it after a 5-year break. And it's a quality of coaching, number one, and some investments that schools have made in their athletic programs just to upgrade facilities. But I'm really going to go to the quality of coaching in our conference. It's elite, and every night is a battle. And even though there's a little bit of a division record wise between 1 through 4 and 5 through 8, 5 through 8 can get you on any given night for sure. I mean, you have to be ready in our conference, and it's because of the quality of coaching for sure.
And then speaking of quality of coaching, you got Brian Morehouse across the hall. Got a program that's been number 1 in the country most of the season, had an incredible winning streak that unfortunately Trine put a pin in. What's it like there's not a lot of programs out there. I mean, Christopher Newport right now has 2 teams in the top 5, but there's not a lot of other programs out there that can speak that men and women are just as competitive, just as good, and just as nationally recognized. What's it like to be working with Brian across the hall and have your teams kind of, mano a mano to some degree?
Yeah, it's amazing. First of all, we're very, very close, as friends, and then our programs, we go to that Florida trip together, and we share a gym and share hotels and support each other, and it's really special. Mo does an amazing job. He's a tactician. He's a fearless recruiter. He surrounds himself with a great staff. They recruit passionately, and Hope is a great place for young women to want to go to school. And he's got an unbelievable roster. They're deep. They play the game the right way. We and full respect to Tryon, because they're amazing. But there are times where Mo's second five is the second or third best team in the conference, because of how hard they work and again how deep they are. So they're relentless in what they do, and it's great to learn from him. And I steal from him all the time. And I like to think that he feels like we support them, and the collaboration is awesome. And we do talk about it at Hope. I think Hope's a special place in regards to our whole staff, as it crosses all sporting lines. And we feel like when one team wins, we all win. When one loses, we all lose, and we share that belief. And it's a fun place to, DeVos is an amazing building. The hallways are great too, because the offices that line it are cohesive, and that starts with our athletic director Tim Schoonveld, who's just an absolute rock star.
He's in the room, isn't he?
He is not.
Oh,
he's not. But I do have his son on my roster, so I do have to say some good things about Schooney.
Yeah, I figured. I knew there was a hook somewhere.
Yeah,
I didn't. I think Brian had his daughter on the team.
His daughter happens to be an All-American on Mo's team.
Yeah.
So
we were told we had to make her an All-American.
There we go. Right.
Yeah, we were told we had no choice.
No. Yeah, I think Kennedy has kind of earned that on her own merit.
Yeah, I have a feeling. Hey, you two ever thought about putting the teams up against each other? Because I'd pay to watch that.
Man, we have not thought about that, but that could be interesting. That could be interesting. Yeah, I know. You just put it on the front burner right there.
Hey, just saying now, Hope men versus Hope women, just saying, could be a lot of fun. Get a little exhibition, charge for people to come in, raise some good money.
We'd get a crowd. Our fans would show up. That's for dang sure.
You play with the women's ball to really, you give it a disadvantage to you guys. I've seen men's play for 4 minutes. They struggle with it.
Yeah.
I'm just
the way we shoot the ball. We better rebound the heck out of it, because we'll probably miss some shots. I can tell you that right now.
They're a good rebounding team. And they're going to come out swinging, and I mean literally swinging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Greg, I appreciate you coming on, especially last minute. Talk about the game, talk about the team, talk about the conference. Really, congratulations. I mean, you're more in the national mix, I'll freely admit, than I thought we'd be talking about you, and I think that's awesome. I love it when things don't go according to how we all think it is, because that makes it more fun. As always, you give the coach the final word, though. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
I just, I'll echo what everybody probably says about you in the program. It's amazing to get the support we get, and the research and the knowledge and the awareness. We follow you on Twitter and we listen, and there's just full respect. There are a lot of pundits out there that talk about Division I that I don't even think they get it, and you get it, and the coaches get it. It's such a great level to play at. I'm thrilled to be in the position that I'm in. Just thank you for the support and all that you do. It's just great to be back in arenas with fans and doing what we all love to do.
No, right there. Nice SEA games again. I'll freely admit. No, very nice. Hey, thanks for the kind words. Absolutely. Really appreciate it. Good luck against Kalamazoo, one of my favorite school names. And we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
All right, take care. Thanks much. We'll see you.
Greg Mitchell joined us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Great to chat with him. That was fun. Great win for them against Calvin. Let's see. We got a couple minutes to kill. We'll let Coach go. There we go. Save him the hassle. Got a couple minutes to kill before we get our next guest coming up at the top of the hour. We still have, it's all going to be women in the next hour. It's going to be Penn State Barron, followed by Scranton. Whitman women's coach, Michelle French. We actually talked to her earlier today. We're going to air it earlier in the show, but just timing-wise, it'll come up later in the program instead. Just going to try and react to some things. I know we gotten some questions regarding those rankings. Again, remember, that's based on the criteria that is the NCAA. If you're watching the show, don't worry. Whitman is coming up. Don't worry. Let's see here. Trying to read. I saw a couple of comments. I wanted to double check. I just want to remind everybody, the top 16 that came out. Oh, that was what I was doing. Top 16 that came out was based on criteria at the NCAA. And I think some people are going to be surprised when you look at some of the schedules and go, well, I don't get this or I don't get that or whatever it is. remember, it's not top 16 in the country based on the D3Hoops.com top 25 or the WBCA top 25. It's a little bit different than that. It's a little bit, you got to go on the criteria that we talked about with the chairs, and that changes the equation. And I'll give you an example. We were just talking about Hope. The Hope women, they're sitting in that 12 spot. I think that surprises some people, but I think in the grand scheme of things, if you think about it, that's probably about right when you look at the criteria. Hope tends to struggle a little bit on the SOS number. I don't know why. I really don't. But, there's a game against Finlandia in there on the schedule. There's a game against Edgewood. Now, Edgewood was a 25-3 team in 1920, and it was a 11-5 last year. So maybe that's just an unfortunate occurrence, but they're 11-12. The Finlandia game, let's see here. Finlandia currently is, they're 13-8, so I can't knock them too much on it, but they don't tend to bring in a strong SOS. But then there's a game against Grace Bible, so that doesn't even count for NCAA purposes. There's a game against Aquinas. That doesn't count for NCAA purposes. And you had a game against Illinois College. You couldn't even play. Illinois College is 7-10. I'm not faulting Hope on its schedule. I'm just trying to give you an example that those numbers are what end up being part of the decision-making process, not the other aspects of it. So if I go to the women's regional rankings and I call up Hope's region to look at their data sheet that we can at least see, hold on as it loads for me. You look at numbers like 19-1, great. 4-1 against regionally ranked opponents and a 543 SOS. Okay, not too bad. Listen, honestly, that's not too bad. But there are SOSs that are a heck of a lot stronger than that. Alma's is a 563. They're 12-10 this year. Again, maybe I picked the wrong school in terms of trying to point that out, but especially on the women's side, the margin of error on that criteria is a lot more narrow. And I think that's what's really interesting about some of these decisions by the committees, is because the margin is more narrow. The men's side, I think it's not as narrow because we have more losses. More losses play a role in the sense that the records aren't as gaudy. And so I think that's kind of where we look at it. I don't know. I want to dive into those numbers more. I'm going to spend the next week certainly doing so. I want to better appreciate where teams got ranked and all of that stuff, and we'll figure it out. Maybe I'm wrong on what I'm trying to get at, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. I wasn't surprised, maybe a little surprised to see Hope down at 12. I think I was more surprised to see a team like Amherst up at 4, but I got to go look at the numbers, break it down. As more certainly Transylvania sitting at 2. By the way, I did get a question about this. Does that mean that Hope women are probably going to be on the road in the first weekend? No, I don't think that necessarily means that. Yes, you got Transylvania. Yes, you have Simpson nearby. You got Trine nearby, and you have DePaul. A little bit worrisome, but remember, not all of them are going to stay there. Hope may rise up further. I don't think that means that Hope's out of hosting. I think they're still very much in the mix to get a chance to host. Granted, unless the men are hosting, but that would take a significant change as well. All right, got to take a break. We are keeping an eye on the Yeshiva St. Joseph's game. From what I've been watching, it has been back and forth. It has started the second half. Yeshiva has a 50-47 lead, but a moment ago I saw St. Joseph with a lead. So game's going back and forth. We'll keep an eye on things there and see how things shake out. And we'll keep abreast of that. But when we come back, we'll talk to Penn State Barron women's basketball coach Christine Van Hook. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More after this.
This is why we love sports. It's in the way they play, free from the pressures and all the money talk. Playing for simply the love of the game, where everyone has a shot at their definition of success on and off the field. This is what we love about sports, and what we can still love about college sports.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Rolling along. We'll be having, hopefully, Coach Barron's Coach will join us here. Or, try that again. Coach Van Hook from Barron will hopefully join us here in a moment. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3sports.com. You can also join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're live simulcasting the show. Keeping track of things there. Haven't seen any comments. Also in YouTube. Sorry, Daryl, just saw your comment. Good to see you have Coach Friends on tonight. Remember when Michelle and her husband coached the boys and girls high school b-ball teams at my alma mater in Okanogan, I think it is, Washington, a long time ago. Yeah, we'll have her coming up here in just a little bit. Looking forward to chatting with her as well. Looks like maybe Daryl jumped off, but hopefully he heard my response. Again, you got questions for us, send them along our way. We certainly will look forward to it. Try and answer them best we can. It's an interesting night, to say the least, and we're looking forward to talking more about all of this as we get closer and closer to things. Again, let's talk about the timeline here. Next Tuesday, we will have the men's third regional rankings. I'm calling them third. The last ones we'll see before the brackets are announced, so they'll come out on Tuesday. And remember, all this data is based on the previous Sunday. So, Wisconsin Whitewater, for example, was in that top 16, but they lost last night. We didn't get a chance to talk how the top 25 has done so far, but they did lose last night. So, that might impact whether they're in the top 16 now. But because the data is through Sunday. Anyway, so we'll get the men's final regional rankings coming up on Tuesday. The women's final regional rankings of the regular season will come out on Wednesday. On Sunday, as we're wrapping up conference championships, and we will moan and complain about the fact that there's conference championships taking way too late on Sunday, causing the committee to have to work way too late. But on Sunday, the racks will meet in the mornings to kind of put their racks together with any of those who have outcomes still to be decided on Sunday, kind of what ifs. Those what ifs will be probably basically put together. The national committee will start working in the afternoon, believe it or not. And they will work their way through all they can and that they're allowed with games that haven't come back to them, that are still being played. So that will take place on Sunday, and they will continue working until all the games are done. And when all the games are done, then they put it all together. Once they are all done with their selections, then they get to bracketing. We will be on the air Sunday evening on a Hoopsville special, our Selection Sunday special. Undetermined what time we will start, but we have traditionally started around 6 p.m. That is our goal at this time. We'll probably start at 6 p.m. and then we will, I think we've traditionally done the men first and then the women. We'll figure it out which order we end up doing that in. Stay with us on Twitter and on Facebook and all them. We'll give you an idea of what we're doing. And then Monday, the brackets are announced. So the NCAA.com, just as they did the top 16, will have an announcement with the brackets. If I remember, it's around 12:30 is the women's bracket on Monday. The men's follows a couple hours later, or I have that reversed. Maybe it's men first, followed by women. We will then be on air Monday evening to kind of react to all of that. So I hope that makes sense. So there you go. Not sure where our guest is. We're going to try and chase him down or make some adjustments here. Give us a minute. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll have somebody on the air with us. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. Back with more after this.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference. NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we continue to roll along. Audible. We're audible. Omaha. We're bringing in our next guest a little bit early. We don't know where our Penn State Barron head coach is, but hopefully we'll catch up with her by the end of the show. Still ahead, we have Whitman women's basketball coach Michelle Frentz will join us. Let's talk Scranton women's basketball. Leading the conference, and I'll be honest, a little surprised at that. Not because of Scranton, but I got to see some other schools like Elizabethtown this season, and I thought the world of Elizabethtown. Catholics had a really good season, and Drew's certainly been coming out of the woodwork. So I thought, Scranton's got a bit of a battle in front of them. I'm not sure they can get out of this unscathed. What do I know? They're undefeated in the conference, and it looks like everything will have to go through Scranton, at least on the women's side, in landmark play. They control their own destiny. They're 17th in the conference, in the country. We'll double check their regional rankings and where they stand, though they did make the top 16, sitting in the 8th spot. We'll see if that means anything to their head coach, because he joins us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline. Nick DePillo joins. It's DePillo, right? I've never double checked that with you.
It is.
Okay. All of a sudden paranoid there. I went, I'm just making stuff up. Hey, first and foremost, good to see you. Hey, it feels routine to say you're having a great season. I mean, you took this job knowing that these are the types of seasons you are expected to have, whether they were told you that explicitly or not. But how are you having a season? What's your judgment of it, as it were?
You know what? It's funny you say that. First of all, I mean, I learned really, really quick on the job that there's a level of expectations that comes along with being the head coach at Scranton. There's definitely a standard of excellence that was set here long before I got here. I've been fortunate to at least play a small part in it, and hopefully we can keep it going moving forward. It's been an interesting year, to say the least. We returned everybody from last year's very shortened season. Made a couple additions, and it took us, mainly took me a little bit longer than it should have to figure out how all those pieces need to fit together and work. Obviously, like every other team, we've had some COVID interruptions, and games moved around, and we've lost a few kids here and there. And I think because of that, we're starting to play our best basketball right now, which is honestly a pretty good time to start playing it. We're fortunate to have a really deep, talented roster, and more importantly, they're just unbelievable kids who 1 through 18, as crazy as that number sounds, 1 through 18, they care about Scranton women's basketball, and it makes it really fun to come to practice every day.
I was going to say, it almost feels like a prerequisite for the players too. They show up, they need to care about Scranton women's basketball too. I mean, everybody understands you're coming into a program that is one of the more storied programs in Division III. It's got a ravenous following and fan base. You are expected to succeed, and even when you lose a game, there are question marks. It's what's that pressure like?
Dave, even when we win games, if they don't look the way they're supposed to look,
totally fair.
Yes, it's part of it too. I'd be lying if I said the first year it didn't affect me a little bit. I learned really quickly that just focus on what's in front of you, and we, as a group, we rarely talk about anything other than the next event, whether it's a practice or a game or anything like that. And for us, that's just the best way to go. We know we haven't played our best basketball yet, although we're creeping toward it. So for us, it's nice to see that people think highly of us as a basketball program right now, and people do have high expectations of us and where we think we're going to go. But at the end of the day, we know, and we talked about it before practice today, if we don't have a great practice today, great practice tomorrow, and put our best foot forward against a really good Catholic team on Saturday, all those things go away really, really quickly.
Yeah, that's an easy way to say it. You guys are positioned well, though, and obviously a one loss isn't going to hurt. You guys have 2 on the season, in Ithaca and in Stevens. And in the grand scheme of things, the Ithaca one looks outstanding because, if memory serves, Ithaca's in the top 16. The loss to Stevens, I mean, I'm sure that one was questioned, but they're 17-5. I mean, they're a good team. Sure. But what happened in those games from your perspective, just because those are the only blemishes we really see?
I got to be totally honest with you. I probably did a terrible job getting us ready for those games. And both of those teams, by the way, really, 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 really talented teams,
Yes.
extremely well coached. And like you said, both are having really good years, and it's been fun following, both, Dan and Meg, lead their teams to really good records and really good seasons. But for us, it kind of goes back to what I said at the very beginning, just taking a little bit of time trying to figure things out and how pieces need to add together, and play best together. I will say the leadership of our team, and not just the kids that play the most for us, but all 5 seniors on our roster, Kayla Farney and Carly Heineman and Danielle McCurdy, Abby Anderson, Emily Sharina. After that Stevens loss, we had some really, really difficult conversations about what needed to change, and it was a great opportunity because it was our last game prior to finals, so we actually didn't practice for almost a week, might have been just more than a week after that, which is like the worst thing in the world. You just want to get right back in the gym and fix everything,
Right?
But it caused us to really have some self-reflection and figure out what they could do better, and most importantly, what I could do better, how I could position us to be better as a group moving forward. And since then, we've improved on both ends of the floor. We lead the league in defensive field goal percentage. We're the only team in the league with a positive assist to turnover ratio. And those are things that we've talked about that really translate to success, not just through the regular season, but if we're going to show any type of success in the landmark tournament, and fortunately, if we're fortunate enough to play in the NCAA tournament, to be successful there, I mean, those things have to be a constant.
Some of the numbers don't jump out at me this year when I look at the stat sheet. Shooting 39.8%. That's a little on the low side for most teams. 33.8% from being on the arc, 74% from the free throw line. You're out rebounding your opponents. That's no surprise. I've seen you in person. You're a tall team. You're going to have some advantages there, and so you do out rebound your opponent. Yes, the assist to turnover ratio, certainly studly numbers. But again, the shooting numbers don't blow me away. When I looked at you guys and I saw you play, and granted, against my alma mater, that's not a shot at Andrea. There's a matchup thing there that you're going to take advantage of. But I wasn't blown away. And again, it could have been just the opponent. But you're getting the job done. So is there a secret in the sauce? Is there something different about this team that you're not going to blow everybody away, but you're going to still get it done that we're not able to see? I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And to be fair, I think numbers could be a little deceiving from time to time. I think if you looked at us in some of our biggest games, quote unquote, we've had some of our better offensive performances. It's one of those things that's probably hard for us to put our thumb on. I will say, I know you had a chance to see us, our point guard, Bridget Monahan, is leading the country in 3-point shooting percentage. The only kid shooting 47%, over 50 from 3 and over 90 from the line.
Yeah, it's a little sick.
What's that?
A little sick. We're going to get to her.
It is. The kid doesn't leave the gym either. I think that's the crazy part. But, but to be fair, again, we've had some stretches where we haven't been as smooth offensively as I would love us to be. But like you said, rebounding has been terrific. Defense has gotten better every game. We're valuing the basketball. And again, we shoot a ton of threes. I mean, we're on pace to set the school record for 3-pointers made and attempted for the second time in 3 years since I've been here. And so, analytically, that does alter the stats a little bit, which definitely helps us as well.
Yeah, we should point out, Bridget wasn't playing in that Goucher game, and so that likely was playing a role in that result. So I was seeing something funky to some degree there. But Bridget, I mean, that was kind of my juxtaposition. All right, I just gave you these kind of funky numbers, but then Bridget comes out, she's shooting 47% from the floor, 51% from beyond the arc, and I have looked at that 4 times today and thought it was a typo, and the numbers were flipped. 91% from the floor. She leads the team in scoring at 17.8 points per game. Pulls down about 3 rebounds a game, hands out about 3 assists a game, gets about 2 steals per game. She's obviously the straw that stirs the drink. She obviously is the key there. You can play without her. You don't want to play without her. How important is she?
She's vital to what we do. It goes without saying, the numbers obviously speak for itself. She's definitely the head of the snake, in a lot of things we do. And, she gets those numbers despite getting an unbelievable amount of attention. And I will say, she could care less whether she scores 2 or 25. She just wants to make sure we're winning, we're moving the ball well, we're playing the right way. And she's helped a lot of our players make their lives a little easier. And her and Abby Anderson have done an unbelievable job growing together as a 1-2 punch as the season's gone on. I mean, Abby is third in the league in scoring and first in the league in rebounding. Can play literally 1 through 5 and has for us at different points this year. It's made it a lot harder just to key on one. And then, obviously you go a little deeper into our roster and, the depth of our talent. And, we're bringing kids off the bench that a lot of teams would love to have, in their top 3 or 4. So, again, you talk about things that's been really hard, why we haven't necessarily played our best basketball early on in the year. And a lot of it was just settling on a rotation. I mean, just because the wealth, the embarrassment of wealth that we have, the talent on our roster, it makes it really difficult. I mean, some of our practices are absolute battles and wars, and it's great, and it's pushed us to be where we are right now. And we wouldn't be here, if we didn't have that.
Anderson, graduate student, 17.5 points a game. Sharina at 8 points a game, 6 each for Harnett and Angelini. Again, you've got a lot of talent. We were just talking to Greg Mitchell at Hope about his team and how he plays a ton of players, and that usually at this time of season, I'll see a lot of players in a box score, or not a box score, but a season stat line. But there's a lot who are 1, 2, 3, maybe four games. You don't have anybody who's played less than 7. You are willing to go on the bench. But is that a result of a lot of games that are out of hand, and so you're giving a lot of depth, or is that because you have the depth and you can go that deep?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, to be fair, we played 6 games without a good chunk of our roster due to, obviously COVID concerns. Obviously, we've been in some games where, the score allowed us to go a little bit deeper. There were some games where we played big. There were some where we played small. Again, when you're dealing with a roster as deep as we have, we definitely have the flexibility to, experiment with different things and try different lineup combinations and, do different things. It's been fun. And again, our kids, like I said, 1 through 18 have made my job extremely difficult every day, trying to figure out the right group of kids to play. So, we're obviously better for it.
If I know everybody well up in Scranton, I'm sure there's a lot of individuals who let you know what the best options are there on who you should be playing.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong, my friend.
We'll leave it at that. Hey, so you got hired in 2019. So welcome to the show. You get 1 year before things. Well, you thought you had a second year before things went haywire, and then you get the pandemic, and then you've got now. You're an assistant coach at Keene, and then at New York Liberty, by the way, not too shabby, and then at Seton Hall. Anything prepare you for what you've had to deal with at Scranton in terms of just the craziness that you got basically halfway through your second season?
I wish I could have like a long, elaborate answer, but no, it really hasn't. It's been, coaching through a pandemic, taking over, a program that, where the expectations are through the roof. Graduating 2 years ago, a group of really accomplished seniors who played in a lot of big games. Fortunately, we were able to get in a shortened landmark season last year and get our young kids some experience, and then having that group back again and adding a couple pieces to the roster heading into this year. It's been a whirlwind, but to be honest, I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, I'm fortunate to work for great people and work with great people every day. And they've made this great. So it's been enjoyable. And I get to talk to you on 9:30 on a Thursday night. Like, what else is better than that?
I mean, really, there's nothing else to do, right?
Absolutely
you
not.
have no other responsibilities whatsoever.
Zero.
Hey, you got a 2-game lead on Elizabethtown, which means everything's coming through the Long Center. And you've swept them this season too, which I am a little surprised. I saw E-Town this year in person as well. I thought they might give you some, and again, I was comparing to a Monahan list team, so maybe not fair, but I still thought they might give you some trouble. I'm almost a little startled that Veronica and her squad didn't trip you up once. Tell me about that matchup and what you're able to take advantage there.
Well, I'll tell you, at our place, we were down 7 or 9 late third quarter, and to our kids' credit, they really did what they needed to do to kind of rally and have a huge fourth quarter in that game. If I'm going to be honest with you, I worry about them. I worry about Catholic. I worry about Drew. Obviously Mary Beth and Moravian took us down to the wire. a couple of weeks ago. Our league is solid and beyond solid. You can make an argument we're a 2. We could be a 2, possibly a 3-bid league. I mean, obviously Catholic's been in the top 25 all year. Elizabethtown is extremely, extremely, extremely talented. Have a bunch of kids who can really, really score, play incredibly hard. But we're fortunate. We talk about the things that are important to us. And if you look at the assist to turnover ratio in both of those games, we were really, really good on the glass. We made enough threes and made enough plays. And, in big games, your best players need to play well. And we're fortunate that every time it's gotten tough, it's been somebody new stepping up and helping us out. And, we talk about Bridget and Abby, but, Emily Shreena's played well on both sides of the ball. Kira Quigley's getting better and better every day. Our bench with Maddie Ryan and Emma Dewar, Carly Heineman, Maddie Harden has been playing terrific. Hannah Angelini's probably, for my money, the best defensive guard in the league, and she was second team all league a year ago. We're fortunate that on any given night it could be somebody else. So, while Bridget and Abby have been unbelievable this year, and in my opinion, they both deserve to be player of the year. We're fortunate that if one of those don't have their A game on a particular night, we have enough depth where somebody else can slide in and pick up the slack.
What about this conference race? Drew looked early on to be the darling of the conference, have fallen to 6-7, though they still have a winning percentage of 15-7. Interesting enough, again, all 7 losses in conference. Catholic has looked really strong. They're 19-3. All 3 conferences, all 3 losses are conference. E-Town again, 11-2 in conference, 19-4. You always have to watch out for Mary Beth Spurk. This conference has gotten pretty deep in the women's side of things.
Totally agree. And you mentioned about Drew. I mean, I've known John for years, long before I've been here at Scranton. He does a great job with his kids. Their front line is as big and as physical as anybody's in the league. Like you said, Catholic has been, they're one of the best defensive teams that we play against every single year. They play incredibly hard. They hammer the glass. We already talked about E-Town, how talented they are. You're right. There's never a night off. I mean, it's a grind. It's a grind of the league. I don't think enough people give our conference, its due. Fortunately, just taking a quick peek at the regional rankings when they came out yesterday, it seems like there is a little bit of love and respect for Elizabethtown and Catholic. 2 other teams who I really, really think have a strong case to be in a tournament.
Yeah, you guys were number 1, Gettysburg 2, Messiah 3, Hopkins 4, no surprise, but then Catholic at 5, E-Town at 7, to help the landmark in what is a very deep region in terms of really good schools. Of course, this conference is now going to get bigger, as we first reported, and then later was confirmed by the conference last week. You guys are adding Lycoming and Wilkes, not next season, but the following for 2023 and then 24 academic year. You have 10 non-conference games right now. That'll get whittled down to 6 with this, I think.
Well, 11 and 7.
Right.
And 14 league games, 11 non-league. But yeah.
Right. No, you're right. I might have done the math wrong. I was about to say something isn't adding up with how I just did that. So, I mean, obviously you'll get a little bit tighter in terms of what you can do with non-conference, but it's going to get a little bit more crazy. First off, you get Wilkes back in play in a conference way. Lyco's not too far. So for you guys, not horrible on the travel side of things. But it does make for a little bit more of an interesting conference landscape. It wasn't done with basketball in mind. It wasn't done with other sports in mind. It was done with football in mind. Your reaction to the conference getting bigger like this?
Well, I mean, it seemed to me from, again, talk about things that are above my pay grade. This is way, way above it. But it does seem that, obviously, like you said, football was the driver of these things, as are most things in college sports. It seemed like we were destined to expand, anyway. And, selfishly speaking, as far as geography goes, if you're going to add 2 teams, it's good to have them somewhat in your footprint, hopefully, create a little more interest in some of the conference games. Obviously, us to Wilkes is 30 minutes and Lyco is not terribly far away from us. I'm sure there are a couple teams in the southern part of our conference that aren't really excited about making the trip up to those parts of Pennsylvania a couple more times a year. But, I think the biggest thing is kind of what you alluded to earlier with the non-conference schedule, us really having to be selective about, assuming you're right and it's going to be 7 non-league games that we're going to have to play, making sure that we're taking into consideration who we're scheduling and, making sure we get enough quality opponents in our non-league schedule to kind of help us when the regional rankings and things of that nature come around and honestly test us for where we ultimately want to be late February, early March.
Yeah, and I just double checked. It is it will go to 11-7, or I mean it will go from 11 to 7 in terms of non-conference. I'm just saying the D3Hoops.com Classic's still an option. I know that takes 2 games off your plate, but I'm just saying we're willing to have you back out there. Would love to have the Royals again. Maybe bring the men's team with you.
I do enjoy Vegas. Vegas is a good spot. We were supposed to go down to Naples this past December, and we were supposed to get Baldwin Wallace down there and Colby, and unfortunately some as with everybody,
Just
things
saying
came
Vegas
up,
is
so.
better. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I'm biased. I'm flat out biased.
I could tell.
Yeah, just a wee bit. Hey, Nick, I appreciate the time. Interesting take on things. Before I let you go and before we give you the final word, I am curious, how important is it? We saw you guys again sitting in the 8th slot. That'll change in terms of this mock top 16. How important, though, is it to get some NCAA tournament games, if not as many as you can before going to Pittsburgh, if that's what happens, to come through Scranton?
Oh, it's extremely important. I mean, for one, there's a comfort level, obviously, with playing at home. You alluded to the fan base. Having an opportunity to play in front of a great crowd in a great gym is something that we really enjoy. I mean, last night we had a whiteout against Susquehanna, and the turnout that we had for that game was phenomenal. And, even my first year, at the later the season goes, the bigger the crowds get. So, for us, it's really important. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the season. We've talked about it a little bit more when conference play began. Those things are really important. Those are like the big picture goals that, we'd love to play NCAA tournament games on our home floor. So, those are definitely important. And, obviously in order to do it, we have to continue to get better every day. It's cliche, it's coach speak, but it's also the reality. We have to make sure that we're as prepared as we can be. We don't want to have any slip ups. We don't want there to be any doubt. We want to make sure that we bulk up and build up our resume as well as we can, and make the committee's job really easy. If and when that time comes.
Makes sense. I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much. We always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
No, first of all, thank you for having me. Obviously appreciate you and everything you do for the game to bring attention to our sport, to our student athletes and our young women. I know I could speak for them when I say we greatly appreciate it. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Coach. I appreciate it. It was good to see you earlier this season, and looking forward to catching up with you down the road. Give Carl a hard time for me if you don't mind. Just say tell him I said hi.
I definitely will, my friend.
Awesome. Take care of yourself, and enjoy the rest of it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Nick DeBillo joining us here on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate him taking the time. Before we get to break, and Michelle Frentz is coming up, a couple of updates. First and foremost, we were going to have Christine Van Hook from Penn State Barron on the show. Unfortunately, unable to make it. It turns out, what we didn't realize fully, she has 4 foster children that she looks after. And we have a feeling she got a little bit tied up with that. We can certainly appreciate that. We will work to get her on sometime next week. Not sure details right now. I don't want to jump the gun too far, but we'll get her on the show coming up. But hats off. She's adopted one of those 3 or those 4. She has 3 others, apparently maybe wanting to adopt them, but took in 4 foster children. Amazing work. So appreciate her efforts there, and totally understand not being able to make it, but we will try and get her on an updated show here in the near future. In men's basketball, St. Joseph and Yeshiva playing. Yeshiva is pulling away from it. Ryan Terrell is having a game. First off, Gabe Leifer's got 16 points, but Terrell's got 22. Halpert's got 23. And they are St. Joseph's led at halftime 45-40. Yeshiva is winning the second half with less than a minute to play, 47-29, have an 87-74 victory or win right now. St. Joseph's shooting 48% from the floor. Yeshiva shooting 53%. They are 12 for 24 from beyond the arc. St. Joe's 2 of 9. Not to jump the gun, but here's the great question. I've thought high of St. Joseph's this season. What do you make of this? It's going to be the last undefeated team is going to go down here in a loss tonight. And as a top 25 voter, am I looking at the Yeshiva team that we all expected to see, or the Yeshiva team that's lost 2 in the skyline. And that makes it hard. That makes it really hard to figure out. I know Terrell's having a hell of a game. 8 of 19 from the floor, 3 of 16 from beyond the arc, 3 of 3 from the free throw line, along with 6 assists. Helpert's 8 of 13, 7 of 10 from beyond the arc. Leifer's 7 of 14 with 9 rebounds. It's going to be a big win for Yeshiva. That's what they're going to need heading into the things here. They now are leading by 11 over St. Joe's, who will fall to 22-1. We'll take a break. When we come back, I talked to Michelle Frantz earlier today. We'll have her conversation. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
This is why we love sports. It's in the way they play, free from the pressures and all the money talk. Playing for simply the love of the game, where everyone has a shot at their definition of success on and off the field. This is what we love about sports, and what we can still love about college sports.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division 3. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. As we wrap up, we got a nice long conversation here with Michelle Frantz. On the other end of that conversation, we'll wrap up the show, so we won't go too much longer. But a supersized show here with lots covering. Obviously, we started with the top 16 and lots to talk about since then. If you got questions for us, you can always tweet us at D3Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, and join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Blazer Bobcat watching and listening from Albany, Georgia. Thank you, sir. He says, final score from Georgia. Maryville men defeated Piedmont 78-59. Maryville men got a loss earlier that we talked about on the last show. But I like them. They're a really good team. Of course, new conference that they'll be heading to. The what did we finally decide that was going to be called? College Conference of the South is what we believe that will be called. So, haven't heard word. We heard that should be released soon, but we haven't heard word as of yet. And it's a final, by the way. Yeshiva defeats St. Joseph's 87-76. I've got Yeshiva in my top 25. I'll keep them there. I'll move St. Joseph's down. That's not the current top 25. I got St. Joseph admittedly pretty high, but it's also one loss and against a really good team. I'll move them down, but I don't know if I'll kill them for it. We'll hopefully get them on a show here in the near future. Again, if you missed it, Penn State Barron women's basketball coach Christine Van Hook unable to join us. We believe she's tied up with her 4 foster children, and we hats off to her for that. We'll get her on a near show in the near future. In the meantime, went out to Region 10 and talked with Michelle Frantz earlier today about Whitman, about the conference. Also talked to her about being a rack chair with a very different rack, and of course also being on the national committee. It was a great conversation with her. Had a wonderful time chatting with her all about it. And again, joined us earlier today. Now joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline, it's the head coach of the Whitman women's basketball team. This is Michelle Frantz. Coach, good to see you.
It's good to see you, Dave. It's been a while.
It has been a while. COVID nonetheless, but it's been a while in general. Hey, listen, we have this conversation often, but I'll say it again. 22-1, 14-0. Obviously having a strong season. doing well in not only overall, but in the conference. We're here with just, days left in the regular season. You got to be pretty thrilled with where you sit.
I am. We're, we had high expectations coming into this year, but you're always, it's never easy. Still not easy. We still have 2 home games to finish out conference, but clinching last weekend, although we tried to blow it, really, was awesome. We haven't clinched that early for a while, so it was fun.
Again, interesting take. We always try and get an understanding of where you guys come from. Your first 3 games, Eastern Oregon, Montana Western, and Southern Oregon, and then later on you played Walla Walla. So we always have a little bit of a struggle early on to understand who you guys are. It's not that we don't realize some of those teams and who they are and stuff. It's just hard for us to gauge good or bad. And so we usually have to wait. And I think I finally was turning my head around the time you lost to Santa Cruz, interestingly enough. It was kind of like, okay, this team's kind of got something rolling here. They look pretty good. And then Santa Cruz tripped you up. And I remember chatting with Gordon. We both went, well, okay, what does that mean more about Santa Cruz? Does that mean more about women? We got to wait. And of course, Santa Cruz, similar schedule. We're trying to gauge it. At what point in this season, you said you had high expectations coming in, but at what point in the season did you realize, okay, this is going to maybe live up to the expectations? Was it early? Was it maybe around Santa Cruz? Was it later on?
We got off to, that you mentioned our always NAIA start, it's just kind of the geography out here. We just can't get the 25 games. And, there's always some untested. I think for us, Santa Cruz is a good team, but we just play so much on the road. I mean, nine of our first 11 games were on the road. And that's just so incredibly tough. And so I think for me, it was more, this team was finding ways to win. They're just finding ways to win. And somebody said, well, what do you do well? I said, I'm not even sure what we do well some days, but we just find ways to win. And I think that the resiliency of the road trips was more for me than anything else. The hiccup at Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is a good team. And that was our, like I said, our 9th road game of 11. And stupid me, goes out and schedules, a Division I against Idaho that's at their place, and then another exhibition at Lewis and Clark State, which is just down the road, and all on the road. So we just packed our bags and went. And and there's just, I just feel like there's every year I try to do it better, and it just doesn't happen. We just can't get home games in the off season. So I think probably I thought our kids played really well at Dallas. I think that was one of they came really ready on that trip. UT Dallas is, Polly's had great teams. I don't think she would probably say this is their greatest team, but they're athletic and they're physical. And that was a good test for us. It was a really good test for us. And I felt like, okay, well, if we can do this, we might be all right. Because our conference is, if you probably have noticed, the Northwest Conference is a bit of a mess this year. Lots of people are beating up on each other. So for us, it's rising above the fray, being ready for everybody. And we've taken everybody's best shot this year. I mean, it's just people play out of their heads against us. And, that's all because you ranked us like 2 or 3 to start, Dave. So I just blame it on you. But really, we've become that. That's what happens when you're a highly ranked team, and knowing if it just is my team gonna be able to handle that. That was a big part of it, and for the most part, we have. No
and kind of to my conversation with Marietta's men's coach last show, and to your extent, having a target on your back, the conference is always tough. You always have a couple of teams that are going to give you some trouble. Not because they may be better, it's just that everybody knows each other. You're playing a second time, et cetera, et cetera. I almost am a little surprised, and this isn't a negative, that you're undefeated in conference at this point. I kind of maybe have just kind of gotten used to going, yeah, there's one, or yep, there's the second. And you guys are sitting here heading into the last weekend and into conference tournament without one, which is obviously a testament to the team, but it also makes you wonder, okay, where is the conference? Puget Sound's still in the conversation. Obviously, Pacific has got a good team and others, but are you guys just that much better maybe this year than the rest, as you said, who are beating each other up, or circumstances sometimes?
A little bit of circumstances. We've had some circumstances I wasn't sure we were going to survive. We had a COVID makeup and a weather makeup, and we ended up pretty early in the conference schedule having to go 7-9 or 7-10. And that was nuts. I was pretty sure we weren't going to be able to 10. But and we haven't like, we haven't blown teams out. We've had a couple games where we've kind of, gotten away from teams. But I think one thing we have is we've got experience. We have a good quarterback from our 2020 team, not even the 19, the 2021 last year, but some kids that understand what it takes to get to a tournament and they understand what the tournament's about. And you can't have those hiccups. It's hard to build a resume for us. We just don't, and you never know how the conference is going to be, but the conference is young. There's some new coaches, there's some young teams. I would say probably us, Pacific, Whitworth have the most experience back, but then, you have to stay healthy, knock on wood, you have to stay healthy. So yeah, and the Northwest Conference isn't necessarily worse. It's just on any night they've been beating up on each other. And I don't know how else to, so it's kept everybody kind of at that 500, 600 level. And, and really the only teams that have separated themselves are us, UPS and Pacific. And UPS and Pacific haven't played again. They play again this weekend. So they're, that could be a split. So it's been an interesting year, but you're right. Normally this does not happen. Normally this Northwest Conference is not this way. And you get to know each other too much. And, and we'll still, we play Lewis and Clark and Fox. We're both in the hunt still for the last spot. So we're going to end up probably seeing one of those teams next week for the playoffs. So with every, familiarity is always a little bit risky. So we'll see how we do. But I think, I am proud of how we've weathered all the I don't know what you can say it, because it's COVID, it's travel, it's just been one thing after another. And our kids have really just rolled with it. It has been pretty at times. I was a couple times and I felt like even at the Santa Cruz game, we played really well for 3 quarters. And then we just lost our mojo. We really lost our momentum and we just couldn't get it back. So one of the things we learned from that game is, we've gotten better at that. And I think that really helped us, this last weekend at PLU. PLU played out of their heads. They played awesome. Not take nothing against those kids, take nothing away from them. We weren't playing great. And we went to our bench, got a good lift, and then found a way to outscore 20-6 down the stretch. It was like, okay, had we not had some of those really early season struggles, maybe we don't pull that off. So got to build on it. So we'll see.
Well, and to all of that, you talk about the schedule being a little wonky, especially early on and playing all those games. There's a couple things that came out even in the second half. First off, during that stretch where you said you played 4 and 6, I did the math, 4 and 6, 6 and 8, something like 8 and 10 or something crazy like that. Most of those games were at home. So you end up benefiting to some degree, but that has a back end to it in the sense that you went through a stretch in February where you were nothing but on the road. And January and February, you played 6 of 8 on the road in conference, just a quirk. But then also that Santa Cruz game took place the 20th of December. And because of all those delays you talked about, you don't play again until January 14th, which is just strange. And you have to sit there kind of still licking the wounds to some degree. There's a lot going on there in the head.
You nailed it. Yeah. Isn't it fun? Yeah, it was. And I think, we talked about it. We talked about it. We got really tired of practicing. So
sure.
The nice part was we got back a little later than our men were here like a week earlier than that because they were supposed to play a non-conference, but kids were ready to go. They're just ready to play somebody. They didn't care who it was. Bring an NBA team in. They just want to play somebody.
Bring on the men's team.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go. Let's get a game. And it was one of those things where it's just COVID has created some really. I thought I'd seen it all. I've been doing this this is my 31st year as a head coach.
Right.
And I've been doing it a long time. COVID brought on some very unique, interesting challenges that we've kind of rewritten the book on how we handle them. So
and it feels like it's one of those hold my beers. Yeah, just wait. We got another twist coming, maybe. Who knows? No, I don't want any more, but it's amazing how I know going into, I dealt with fall sports, things that had its bumps, but nothing major. We get into, November, we're like, hey, basketball's starting up. Things are looking good. We'll be careful. And then Omicron comes around and you're like, oh my Lord, here we go again. It's just, you just never know. And I'm really impressed with the resiliency of a lot of teams. Tell me a little bit about the team individually. You got Kaylee McCracken leading the way, 18 points a game. Corin Baker, 11.3. We always call the ones close to 10 points as double figures. So Kaylin, Shamslinden?
It's Shamsildeen.
Oh,
Yeah.
Shamsildeen. I actually can say that easier than the other version I was going for. 9.7 points. And we should point out, by the way, McCracken, basically a double-double, 9.7 rebounds on top of that. Those are the three. Really, Sydney Abbott, we should count too. 8 points a game. Those are it seemed like the core four.
Yeah.
Obviously, you play a lot of players. I'm looking at a whole host of them that have come off the bench for you. But tell me about that four, and we'll get to the rest.
The four, I mean, you gotta leave with Kaylee. I mean, I really feel like the last 3 weeks, she's even picked it up, even more. Good. She's just a great scorer. She loves to score. She's got a nose for the rim. Very efficient free throw shooter, so you don't want to foul her. But when we play at our best, Kaylee's rebounding both ends. When Kaylee's going to get boards defensively and offensively, we're like, it just pushes us to another level. She's just can't hardly pry the ball out of her hands. She's just such a strong. I always give her a hard time, just kind of like, because she's only, we list her like I think 5'10", and she's she just bangs. I'm not sure she
is 5'10" on the list.
Yeah, it's a give. Maybe give her an inch.
Shocker.
Yeah, but she just gets it done. She knows how to use her body. She knows how to use she just has great timing. She really does. And so, I mean, she obviously you have to have that player who brings it, and her consistency has been, like you said, the double-double. She's been very impressive the last 3 weeks. I think she's won all but like 3 weeks in a row our conference player of the week.
I did notice.
Yeah, she was rolling them up, but deservedly so, because she was putting numbers up, and we were winning. And so, and then her counterpart is a sophomore. That's Corinne Baker, and Corinne is shooting really high percentage. They're a tough handful. We don't match up with some teams in our conference because we've kind of got a real 2-post structure going on. Offensively, defensively, but then they've got to, on the flip side, they got to deal with our double-headed monster too. So Corinne's really starting to come along. She's only a sophomore. She has her ups and her downs. She only had, she's a sophomore that had 11 game freshman season. So she's still very much developing.
Starting to get into what is a sophomore campaign.
Exactly. And she's really, that's such a hard worker. I think, she's got a really bright future, but strong, really strong. And I mean, and people focus on Kaylee, then Corinne does her business. I mean, she just takes care of business. So those two have complemented each other really well. And you mentioned Kaylin. Kaylin came back for a very unusual 5th year for a Whitman student. We don't have grad school.
Right.
Yeah. And it took another major on.
Wow.
Yeah. I think, just really has become, everybody talks about her shooting because she's kind of, she can get really hot, and she did at UPS. She heated up pretty well. But the thing that Kaylin does for us is she's such a good defender. She's a defender. She's a hustler. She rebounds, and has really added that dimension to her game. So I feel like I can't hardly take her off the floor sometimes because she's chugging on all those cylinders. She usually has that tough matchup for us at the guard spot, and just plays so hard. And I'm glad she's having a good senior year. She had a really nasty injury in her last game. In our little 11 game season last year was her senior night, and she got her arm actually fractured in two, like pulled in a weird direction. So she's come back. I'm just come through a ton of surgeries and rehab. So to come back and she just wanted a shot to play in another NCAA tournament. That's what she wanted, and just really a team kid. And then Sid is one of those kids. Sid has, I mean, she is a freshman, sophomore at I guess she got another year. She's an all-conference player for Whitworth, and then she transfers to us, and she's kind of taken a backseat scoring wise, and is really but she's still, I mean, one of our better post passers, great defender, just brings so much energy to what we do. So she's a great compliment with this group. So, and when we need her to score, she can go score. So that's kind of our leading four, but the depth has been, thank goodness for the depth. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. By the way, to add to the wit rivalry, Sydney transferring
Sydney transfer
from Worth to Min, that just stirs the pot. Well, to some of your points, McCracken's got 9.7 rebounds per game. She's got twice as many rebounds as Baker, but Baker's got twice as many rebounds as Kaylin.
Yeah.
And then we mentioned Sydney. She's got 76 assists. She's second on the team to Taylor Chambers, and that's where the rest of this depth is. She's got 82 rebounds per contest. But outside of that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You play another 5 almost every game, and you've got another 4 that you play 2/3 of the time off that bench. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I always find when you get to the NCAAs or you get to this point in the season is the teams that have a bit of depth. You can't be short. You can shorten your bench. Yeah. You can certainly do that in the NCAAs with media timeouts and all that, but you need depth in case someone's off, someone gets injured, something like that. And so I don't remember when you've been this deep. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember this kind of depth with your squads in the past.
No, we've never been this deep. And I made the comment to my assistants, a couple of weeks ago. I go, I feel like, and I think it's a compliment to the kids. I don't mean it in a bad way. I haven't been able to even settle on a rotation really because they just keep battling for those minutes. And our practices are solid. There's a mix. There's a mix of some really experienced juniors. Some kids that have played a little bit, but again, they didn't get a sophomore season, so right. They're kind of soft. I call them super softs, but they're just starting to come into their own, and they've had some big moments for us, and played some good minutes. But there's just times I feel like I go to one person and they're playing, go to the next one and they start playing really well, and they trying to take the momentum. It's been I thought we were pretty deep in 1920. I thought we had decent depth.
Yeah.
This is even because we went, and played in Iowa without McConna, and Kaylee really stepped up, and a couple of, Natalie and some of my seniors really took on different roles. But this has been all year. It's been really unique, and it has its real positives. And then I think, but the kids, they'll just want to play, and so they want to know where do I fit in, and it's like, right. Wow, I don't know, what game are we? What what day are we? It's they've really battled each other, which has made it fun. It's made it fun to coach. I mean, they're a fun group to coach because they compete so hard.
That's always fun.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears a little bit. You talked about the national committee and the work you're doing there, and obviously regional rankings. By the way, a little shot at Polly. I remember talking to Polly. I said, "Oh, you're not on the committee anymore," and she says, because they had said with 10 regions and with COVID, anybody last year, especially the seniors, for lack of a better description, one more year. And Polly's like, "Well, they've already got a rep in Region 10 because they got moved into Region 10." I'm like, "Oh, that's right. You have Michelle sitting there in Region 10. So first off, as a RAC, you're dealing with a different region than you've had in the past. You don't have as much of that Mississippi River area of the upper kind of Midwest of the country, but now you've got Texas. So just on the RAC side of things, and I'm not looking for particulars, I'm just looking for a kind of a flavor. How has it been adjusting to kind of evaluating a different looking region that you've had in the past?
I got so familiar with the MIAC,
right.
I did. I mean, and those, and got to know those Minnesota schools, and I can't say them as we've played Trinity,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We played Texas, Dallas, Mary Hardin. I mean, I'm familiar with the league,
but not in a numbers way.
Not in a numbers way, and even there's always a little bit of an art to the science, and it's trying to understand. Like, I understand the SCIAC. I mean, we play them a lot, we see them a lot. I obviously understand our conference, but I don't really understand what's the word for it? What is the dynamic within the SWAC, because they travel so much.
Sure.
I know Trinity's running the table right now. They've got a good team. They're running the table, but what if they get upset? What does that mean? I don't understand it as well. And so we've had some really long RAC calls. I'll be honest, just really trying to talk through, because we're trying to get to know each other, to be honest. Because they're not as familiar. They're more familiar with the Northwest Conference, I feel like. With me, we've gone down there, we've played. So they kind of have an idea. They've come out. Trinity was out this year.
Right. Yeah.
but there's also the SCIAC, and there's not a lot of Texas SCIAC crossover right now.
True.
And so it has been different. Still the same. It's the same. What's the word for it? It's almost we have less crossover with the rest of Division III than we did when I was doing the MIAC, because the MIAC played a lot of Wisconsin and Iowa, Illinois.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. True. You're more isolated to some degree.
We're almost more isolated because the Texas schools play they have 2 leagues and they cross over a lot.
Didn't think of that.
Yeah, and so I've found that that's the one thing I'm probably struggling the most with is trying to. I don't have a lot of push points when I'm talking on the national committee about trying to explain who we are as a region.
Yeah.
Not as many crossovers as we had with when we were with the MIAC.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's probably been my learning curve, and I'm trying, because my job is to help Region 10. That's my job. Is Region 10 needs to be on the national board. What is the conversation? How do we compare? And some days I feel like I'm missing the mark a little bit, because I have to make Region 1 understand. I have to make Region 5 understand.
Yeah.
And because that's how the national committee operates, is we were looking at the big picture. We got to look at the big picture and who fits the criteria. And
sure.
So that's been my biggest struggle. I knew it was going to be different. I just didn't identify, I think, my challenges early enough. So I'm getting better at arguing a little bit and pushing stuff. And it's a very professional, congenial, manner, but it is just so hard when you have teams in other regions who play the UAA. We don't play the UAA. We just don't get those games. We've crossed over with the NESCAC on occasion, but we just don't. And Texas doesn't either. Texas doesn't have those games.
True. Well, no, absolutely. Yeah.
It's an interesting. It's just interesting. Colorado College came out with, that's probably our one kind of point, is Colorado College has played a little bit of more of a national schedule. But
well, and the other aspect of it too, and I've heard this from some RAC members, is with this 20% versus the 15 to 21 in the past, you're ranking even deeper than you would ever rank in the past, and I know that's adding to the time.
It's gotten, that's something I think we may have to revisit our target.
I think so.
It's been we're splitting hairs long before we should be splitting hairs. We're getting into the weeds where on some teams that just probably aren't legitimate on the board, I guess, kind of teams. Now, anything can happen. This is the crazy time of year,
right.
So I mean, we have to prepare ourselves. There might be some upsets, and what happens if there is an upset in, I alluded to, Trinity's conference, so whether Trinity doesn't run the table, they don't win the conference title. We've got to have all that together so that we can really compare Trinity as an at-large, or Whitman as an at-large, or whoever at-large. And that's the burden I feel is, we just don't have as many comparison points. And that's been the life of the people out here in the West, what we used to call the West region, now the Region 10. That's our reality. I just feel like this is even more this year. I feel we feel we're a little more isolated than we've been in the past. I can't go, well, St. Thomas though played Whitewater, We don't have that type of it's like I don't know what the word is for it. It's like the I always think of the Kevin Bacon thing, the
7 degrees of separation. Yeah.
I'm getting cut off at number 3 right now, Dave. I can't get to the 4th or the 5th or the 6th.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that's my challenges on the rack, is to just try to be the advocate and explain and also listen. I think that's the other part of this. I have to listen to what I'm hearing from other conferences in terms of when they talk about their teams, and that's probably been the thing I've been doing a lot more. I've just been listening a lot, a little bit of advocacy, a lot of listening to try to get a feel, but because we just don't see each other. We really need more. We need Nebraska and, Oklahoma.
A little more in the middle, right?
Squeeze them in the middle, but we're not. It's not going to happen. They're NAIA.
If they are, it's real slow. It's not going to be helpful. On that token, and I'm not trying to say the team has to win, but from this perspective, how important is it to go and get this AQ, lock up the conference, get it done with, so you're not at the table, so that you can participate in the national call and don't have to at some point step aside and not be involved because Whitman's at the table, and then of course wait until you're hopefully picked. But on top of that, make sure your backup doesn't have to step in for you until absolutely necessary or not necessary at all. It's a strange question, but how important is it to lock things up so you can stay involved with where you need to be involved?
I look at it from, I understand exactly what you're saying. And we've been 5 times, and 4 times we went as an at-large. We've only won the tournament once. So, I think resume building is the most important thing. And I think we've built our resume as long as we continue to take care of business. But I always tell our players, when you get to this time of year, it's you want to go out with the idea that just to win. You just got to get that playoff mindset. Win it, it's that survive in advance type of mindset, and and focus more on playing well. If we play well, we're going to be just fine. When we didn't show up, like on Saturday for 3/4 of the game, we're going to struggle. It has to be more focused on us. I think the kids know that it would be they want, and the other part of it is, Dave, is we're going to host the Northwest Conference as long as if we win on Thursday, we'll host on Saturday, because that's how we do things here. And so it's wanting to win at home too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Wanting to win at home, because those could be our last home games,
right.
I was teasing Kelly about, I said, well, I know you're not going to say anybody Walt Wallace. So I told her, I said, I was trying to sell the wine to her thing, but whatever. Anyway, but she's always so great. She goes, now I'll get it to you. And she has. I mean, I just teasing her, but.
Well, I mean, you'd have to be upset to guarantee your home for the first weekend. I mean, it's kind of a twist, right? I mean, unless something crazy happens, the real twist is you need to be upset to guarantee you stay home for the NCAA tournament. But if you're upset, then all these other things roll off, and that's not ideal either. It's a horrible catch-22.
It is, and it's just it's our reality out in the Wild West, and we just try to focus on other things, and we don't even talk about it. We don't even talk about it.
I don't blame you.
I'm rolling it over in my head like, okay, right now I'm it's just that we were on the road the last 2 weekends and had to play the number 2 team and the number 3 team in our conference, basically 2 tied for each other, so tied for second. And so my focus just on, we got to survive these 2 road trips so we can get home.
Yeah,
I was like, and we did, but barely. And so but we've had that conversation, Dave. It's just, that's our, and that's just not something that, I hate to say it, but that's not the reality for 80% of Division 3.
No, absolutely. No, and we're certainly aware of that. Yeah. And it's the way the division's just made up, and right and wrong, and we can circle the drain 100 times on it, but it is the challenge for you. It's a challenge for the SCIAC. And as you mentioned, we've talked about the challenges in Texas too. Hey, could talk to you forever. I know you're busy though. You got a lot to do. I don't want to keep you too long, but I appreciate the in-depth understanding of the team, but also a little bit of the national call and conversation. Good luck with all of it. I think.
Thanks for all you do. And I this is kind of a unique, this whole revealing the top 16 and the work we're doing. We're doing more early work this year as a committee than we did. And you only have really 2020 to really compare it to. But we've put in a lot of hours, and I think the committee is we're excited to have a championship. It's been 2 years since we've been able to host, the final. So it's, the committee we've been working earlier and harder than I think my recollection in 20,
No, you're right. Yeah.
And so this is just, and I just had to shut my brain off from all of that, and time to get ready for 2 scary teams coming to wall. They're battling each other to get that last spot. And so we need to be ready.
Well, and we know the history of George Fox, to see them in that situation's odd. So that they can come out and get you. So a lot on your plate, I realize. And
but you too. Well, thank you for everything, Dave.
Well, thank you. I'll just always say, we always finish with the guests of the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
I just want to say thanks to so many people in the NC2A who are really going to make this happen this year. It has been a long couple years, and not having a championship for our sport in our division. And so it's hoping I'm doing my part, but still, it was that having that tournament canceled in 2020 and still being, and not, you usually lose out, you finish your season because of something you've done. You lose your season or you win a championship. It's one extreme or the other. That was really one of the more difficult things to deal with as coach was, and then not understand what we're getting ourselves into for the next 2.5, 3 years. And so I'm thankful to all the people who have been very committed to getting this back, despite the fact we're still working around COVID and still working with COVID. The commitment has been awesome. So
yeah, well said. Well, good luck this weekend. Good luck the rest of the way. We'll look forward to chatting with you down the road. Take care of yourself.
Hope so, Dave. Take care.
Now joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoops. Oops. That was on loop. That was Michelle Frentz. Joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate her coming on about Whitman. Great chat with her. Probably one of the more in-depth conversations we've had with Michelle. We've always had good conversations with her. She's been receptive to when we've asked questions about the scheduling. I'm honest. I'm still surprised that she says that they have trouble with scheduling and getting teams to play them when the men don't. But I just, there are dynamics I don't know. And so we'll take it at face value. And I think that's also, though, one of the reasons, again, they're sixth in the nation. They're second in their region, but they're not in the top 16. And I think she knows that. I mean, we're not speaking anything new here, but great conversation with her. Appreciate it. And fascinating conversation too about, that region 10 is now really the isolation region. It's the 3 islands all combined. I guess I knew that obviously from the get-go. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Let's quickly look at the top. We didn't do this top of the show because we were so busy with top 16 and everything else, but top 25 so far this week. On the men's side, Lacrosse lost to Stout, 76-66. Kind of surprised me a little bit there. Elmhurst lost to Milliken, 74-64. I don't have Elmhurst in my top 25. But we're all over the place, to be honest with you, as voters. Nichols, who I do have in my top 25, lost to Suffolk, 89-83. They're not in the top 25. They're receiving votes. The only 2 that lost in the top 25 going into today were Lacrosse and Elmhurst. Nichols lost receiving votes. Hanover lost to Transylvania receiving votes. Calvin lost to Hope, which we talked about earlier. And DeSales lost to Del Val. That is on the men's side. On the women's side, I think it's a little bit better, certainly, than anything else. Actually, I'm wrong. Whitewater lost to Oshkosh. That was mentioned on the top 16 show by Will Haskett because Whitewater is 7th in that top 16, but that data was before that game. That was done through the weekend. So Whitewater lost to Oshkosh 60-57. Baldwin Wallace lost number 13, John Carroll, 67-54. Wisconsin Lutheran lost to St. Norbert, 59-56. And Catholic lost to E-Town, 65-57. Nobody in the receiving votes category on the women's side lost. So there you go. Interesting juxtaposition on those. Twitter's been somewhat quiet other than the big win by Yeshiva. Again, big win in the second half. I think I read they held St. Joseph's to, what was it? What did I read it? 5 points in the last 5 minutes? What was it? Hold on. Where is it? I just had it, and of course I lost it. Here we go. I know why I couldn't find it. So 31 points in the second half and 12 points over the last 10 minutes. So St. Joseph held to 12 points in the last 10 minutes by that Yeshiva defense. Pretty stout. And by the way, that's Yeshiva's first ever win over a nationally ranked team. So congratulations. Listen, that game got put together at the last minute, or somewhat the last minute. It got thrown together because both teams had lost some games. So hats off that they played each other. We don't have any undefeated teams left on the men's side. We have 3 left on the women's side. So there you go. All right, so programming notes. We'll be on the air Monday at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Then next Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Then next Sunday, time to be determined, either 5 or 6 p.m. And then next Monday at 7 o'clock. We'll tweet that all out so you all know what's coming. There is a lot to talk about. Whether we stick to the regions like we normally have, I can't say for sure. but we'll do our best. And lots to talk about. Again, I want to thank our guests for coming on tonight. First, Mike Schauer of Wheaton and Megan Wilson of Luther for coming on as the committee chairs and chatting with us. Really do appreciate that. We will talk to them next week at some point. Usually we put them as part of our selection show. And then I want to thank Brendan. Sorry, I second guess how to say Brendan's name because I don't want to screw it up, and I've screwed it up on more times than I can count in my head, and so that's why the hesitation. But I want to thank Brendan for coming on the show and talking to us. Brendan Twomey from Farmingdale State. Great to chat with him and get an idea of things out there. Greg Mitchell from Hope. Really appreciate his efforts to be on the show. I also want to thank Nick DePillo and Michelle Ferenc. Unfortunately, we missed out on Christine Van Hook out of Penn State Barron, but again, we believe she got tied up with her foster children, and we tip the hat of that. And we will work to get her on in the next week, and so we can hear from her because her program certainly deserves some attention. I want to thank the SIDs certainly for their help at each of those institutions. Jill Yama, by the way, just hats off at Penn State Barron, really helped. I appreciate her assistance. Alan Babbitt, obviously, at Hope. Dominic, I'm going to say your last name probably wrong, but I'm going to do my best. Jahovsky at Farmingdale State. I really appreciate his time that he gave us through all of this. Joe Fitzhenry at Scranton. New SID there. We miss our friend Gatto, but wish him the very best in his career. And John Berry at Whitman. Thank you for their help here tonight on the show. Again, we'll be on the air Monday. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3sports.com. That's how you can get a hold of us. Lots of ways and we'll happy to answer questions. This is kind of the craziness. We've got 10 days left because the 27th, we're going to be talking about who's in the tournament and who's not. So really appreciate everybody helping us out. I've been going back with Scott Peterson about that Hope women's schedule. He just tweeted, it says, awful non-conference slate, Edgewood, Mount Union, Finlandia, Benedictine, Central Illinois College, Baldwin Wallace, Grace Bible, Aquinas. I will say this, Scott, for that thought. I don't think Edgewood's horrible, but it certainly isn't helping them. Mount Union is usually pretty good, last I checked, unless I'm missing something. Hold on a minute. Mount Union women are... Well, they're 9-12 this season, so I take that back. They've been pretty good. Susie Vanette's had a good team, but you got a point there. Finlandia has a winning record, but it's not helping them. Benedictine's not helping them. Central, certainly, I get all that. And Grace, Bible, and Aquinas, I agree with you. I don't understand why those games are still being played in this day and age. But yeah, so that's that Hope conversation we were having earlier. Yeah, and a lot of those conversations are going to continue on Twitter, on D3 Boards. Please check out d3boards.com, register, join the conversation. It's worth having. I want to thank our partners at the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Also want to thank our partners at Blue Frame Technology. You don't forget, you can stream via Team One Sports app, either on Apple TV, Roku TV, Android TV, or Amazon Fire TV. Also want to thank our partner at Women's Basketball Coaches Association. Of course, everybody at D3Hoops.com. Gordon Mann, Ryan Scott, and Pat Coleman among them. But, of course, want to thank all those who have helped us along the way as well, including Ira Thor and some others. Really appreciate it, everybody, for your hard work. It's always fun to have everybody on board and working hard. So, again, we'll be on the air Monday. That will be around all weekend. And we'll be back on the air next Thursday as well, all leading up to selections here in the next 10 days. It's a conference tracker has been posted on D3 Hoops as well. We'll have the regional rankings next week and lots of other good stuff. So, yeah, great show tonight. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've got questions for us, you can always find us on Twitter, on Facebook, and elsewhere. Good night, everybody. Have a great one. If you want to talk Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. We'll see you back here on Monday night.